wanted to say something at the top of the show. Just when you thought that perhaps we were done with Fear the Walking Dead, I just wanted to say one thing, and I'll be inserting this in the show, is that we have at least one observation and one tie-in to the current events of The Walking Dead. And I just wanted to say that off the top of the show because when we get to it, I'll insert it when necessary.
Okay. This is news to me.
Yeah, and with that, I will, while I get my notes up, I'm going to hand this over to Carol. Do you know why I'm handing this over to you and it's extra special?
Because I'm super excited and pumped about this episode.
That's reason one. Reason two?
Because there's no intro.
That's reason two. Reason three? Is that we haven't heard from you in a week.
I know, but I've come back stronger than ever.
Oh, did you say strong? Stronger than ever,
full of energy.
You got the dig, right? You got the, because strong. You want to be stronger?
Oh, God. No, we're not going to go there. Oh, my God. It took me a second. I was like,
so precious.
No, we're not doing that. No, I'm excited. I was very apprehensive going into this premiere. I mean, I was excited. I mean, I was excited about it.
Yeah,
but
you couldn't handle it.
Oh, my God. I could barely contain myself. But at the same time, I wasn't sure how it was going to be, or like, is it going to be, kind of slow going, because it's, obviously having to set up, we're doing the time jump, all that kind of stuff. But no, man, we got like right into it. And I honestly, I obviously watched the episode a couple of times, almost 3 times actually, because, my husband, he was like, oh, I'd love to be a guest in your podcast. I'm like, well, you have to watch first,
I would definitely. He's actually a pretty good speaker too.
He is a pretty good speaker. And I just told him that the prerequisite is to, watch the episode. So basically.
Which he hasn't? Is that what's going on?
No, because he's an early to bed, early to rise kind of person. And I'm a night owl. So I watched it when it came on live at 9, and I watched Talking Dead afterwards, and then I rewatched it later and took notes. So I just kind of was like balls to the wall on Sunday, but basically, with him, we always record it anyway on DVR, so he'll usually watch it maybe the next day in the morning or something. So he was watching it while we were setting up, he's been watching it. I was like, well, you get caught up on episode 1, and you can always come on and contribute once you're fully informed.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you call me, when you're better acclimated.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, buddy.
But I almost was going to watch it a third time because he was watching it, and I was like, oh man, we got to get set up. But I just enjoyed it that much. I really enjoyed it. And when I was writing notes, I realized how much substance there was in this episode. It wasn't filler. You know what I mean? It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So
I would almost even wager a guess that it's almost too packed. I would say not that that's a bad thing for people like us.
Right.
Because we'll rewatch things, take notes, and then we'll realize, oh, wow, they're giving us a lot of information in a short period of time.
Yes. I have pages of notes. It's a lot. But it's good. It's great. And again, I'm the person that comes from the comic book background. So there were aspects. Part of the reason that I was kind of entering the season a little sort of like, oh, let's see how this goes, is because of the death of Carl in, this past season, season 8, that really kind of threw things for a wrench. And I was like, well, how are they really going to do this or that or whatever? Because I knew Carl was an integral part of the events that kind of transpire. So when I was watching this episode, I was sort of like, okay, I see why this happened, because since there's no Carl, we had to kind of remix a little things in order to get from point A to point B. So right. It started all coming together and making sense and all of that. But I thought it was a very solid episode and a good start to basically kind of come in and make a point. I think Angela Kang knocked it out of the ballpark. I think, if you want to say that Maggie Rhee made a statement, Angela Kang made a statement, very clear statement of okay, this is new beginning, this is how we're starting off, and it's going to be a great story. So I think that the reviews by and large were very positive. So I don't think the ratings were great, but I'm hopeful that because the reviews have been so positive, that it'll entice more people to come. Because I know certain reviewers that are very critical of The Walking Dead, and they've been very, very positive. So which tells me that that's a good sign.
Yeah, I'd heard about the reviewers as well, and how the ratings were actually really low.
Right.
As well. At least the TV ratings, I'm not sure. Again, they did this knowing full well that the on-demand streaming, and then just to let you know, like my cable provider, and I may have mentioned this, but my cable provider does not have the videos on demand as quickly as they used to, at least for AMC shows.
No, you're right, because I remember actually when I used to live in New York, it was the same. Like there was a lull between the time of whenever it aired and when it was actually on demand. Sometimes like a couple of days.
I mean, at most a day, like, but now it's been kind of like, man, I've had to like wait 3 or 4 days. I mean, sometimes a week, I think.
Oh man.
Well, because when I was reviewing the last few episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, I was like, oh, forget this. I have to go to my computer. I have to do this, which is not that bad, but I kind of like the ability to just kind of whip out my phone, take a few notes in front of the big screen. Yeah.
No, of course. Yeah. No, that's wow.
We're living our best life, and yet our cable provider doesn't want us to. What's the deal with that, Carol? What's the deal?
Do you have Comcast? No.
I have Spectrum. I'm gonna blow that up. We're not making money. We're not gonna get sued.
No, we're not making money. No, I will say, Verizon Fios is pretty hands down, pretty damn fabulous. Like I tell people,
your
down
words
here
are salt in my wounds.
I've told people when I'm down here, it's like, well, when I used to live up in New York, I had Verizon Fios, and they're like, oh man. I mean, not that we have crappy service now. I mean, we have it's Comcast, whatever, which is fine. It's good. Like I can't lie. It's good. The thing is that I find that Verizon Bios organized their channels in a way that was more conducive to you finding things. Whereas like here, it's just, there's not as much rationale as why you'd have to go by, I don't know, Playboy to get to PBS. Like it makes no sense. There's no logic whatsoever.
Playboy.
Seriously, yeah. So basically, like I don't even bother with that crap. I'm like, I don't flip. Like I just basically, okay. Well, the nice thing is that it has like the voice feature, so you're just talking to your remote and be like, oh, PBS, oh, AMC, or whatever, and then it just goes to it. So I don't even know what channels, my numbers.
Yeah, that's why you need like a tech guy like Eddie to program your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not that. Look, as much as you want to say that it's a guy and a girl thing, it's the guys. They get obsessed over like the phone you have. They get obsessed over the TV channels and the quality of the video. Yeah,
I get frustrated because sometimes
I just didn't want anybody to call me out. By the way,
it's not. It's 100% true because I mean, look, as long as the TV works and there's a remote control, I get frustrated when sometimes like Eddie puts something else on and it's through some other streaming service and it corresponds to one of the 4 other remotes, and I'm like, I don't know. There's 4 remote controls. Which one is it? Like I don't know which input. I don't know. HDMI 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
All right. Tell him these exact words. Tell him you got to get that magic remote, son, and just leave the room after you say that. You'd be like, wait. What's that? What is that? Don't even say ask Dave. Just say just leave.
I just basically that's basically when I call and say like, can you help me change the channel back to the cable? Back onto the cable.
Do the cable for me and then leave because I'm watching the show.
My level of technology is DVR. It's like, okay, let me set this DVR up. Okay, everything is ready. It's recording. Woo! It's my level of excitement. It's very exciting. I didn't have DVR in New York, so.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I still don't have DVR. I'm like that last holdout, like where I'm hoping to skip DVR technology and just go straight to on demand. Thinking everything's on demand, and I'm mostly right. But then I lost FiOS when I moved from Greenpoint to South Slope. So like now I'm with Spectrum, and it's kind of like they're on demand. You can't even save your favorite shows, so it's kind of like I have to manually remember what. I mean, this is like the most first world problem ever. It's like, I have to remember the shows I'm watching on demand.
Very first world problem.
Oh my god, baby!
It's like me complaining about something not recording on my DVR. Like,
exactly.
Okay, get over it.
I mean, I was gonna say the Great British Baking Show. That would have been a cool thing to make fun of somebody about, but then that's on Netflix, so that actually counters my point. So
yeah, it doesn't work.
Anti-DVR. It's like next level DVR. Netflix.
I know.
So back to the show.
Tangent.
Yeah, so the first thing I kind of wanted to get... So I wanted to kind of go in order. There were points in which I kind of combined things where I kept the continuity flowing, and then places where I deliberately switched off because they're pseudo-significant.
Yes.
But the first things first is it's the thoughts on... so what did you think about Andrew Lincoln's intro into the episode? I thought that was kind of cool.
I did too. I thought it was kind of cool because it kind of reminded me of like an old-timer telling like the youngins is like, you know, everything they went through and how we got to where we are today. I like that. I like that approach. I like this whole Western sort of feel.
This is how it used to be, son.
Yeah, I like it. It's the Walking Dead wood, you know?
Yeah, that's as somebody put it, yep.
Yeah, I like it. I definitely like it.
I think it was on the Walking
Dead. It was on Talking Dead, yeah.
Who said that out loud? Was that Hardwick?
Might have been, maybe it was Hardwick. Might have been Hardwick. I think it was Hardwick, actually, yeah.
Could be.
Probably.
It might as well have been, but yeah. Well, he's a big Deadwood fan anyway. He mentioned that.
Yeah, so I think it makes sense. But no, I liked it. I liked that a lot. And then, you know, just kind of getting that Old West vibe and the spiked wooden gates and a new Alexandria sign, the solar panels and the windmill. I thought it was awesome. It was very cool intro opening. But I did like his little recap, and I did like, I mean, I knew, obviously, like I remembered everything that happened, but I thought it was a nice, clean little synopsis of showing us, like, you know, everything that they went through without necessarily like showing what happened to Glenn and Abraham. I'm like, well, please, let's not go back to that, you know, so I thought it was good.
Oh, yeah, God. Yeah, it's a pretty clean way to kind of sum up. The cleanest way you probably could sum up the last 2 seasons.
Right.
To be fair.
To be fair, yeah.
Yeah. I think I liked it too. I think part of it's a little creepy though too, because like I think the one thing that I don't know whose decision it was to kind of just make the intro to the season kind of like keep emphasizing, oh, Andrew Lincoln's leaving. You know Andrew Lincoln's leaving, right? Well, Andrew Lincoln's leaving. If you forgot that Andrew Lincoln's leaving, here's the intro where Andrew Lincoln is speaking the intro.
What do you think about that?
So you know to miss him. I think it's a little annoying, especially since part of what I'm thinking is, and I may have mentioned this, I may not have, is that I've been saying to people on Instagram what I've been feeling about Rick, what's going to happen to Rick, and I don't think it's a death.
I don't think it's a death either.
And that's what makes things a little bit more annoying, because it's kind of like, well, the way they're framing this is that it's definitely happening.
But he's not dying. We didn't say he's dying. He's leaving.
Yeah. Well, we didn't say anything about that. I'm like, well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then why make that why not make it about the story? Why not make it about the show? Why?
Maybe they're just trying to get ahead of it, and just sort of like, okay, well, we know that it's happening, so then let's just sort of like go with it or whatever. Or it could also be like a marketing, honestly, sort of thing. Like, okay, well,
like to draw in people who aren't watching the show, basically.
To draw in people and see like, okay, because people are going to tune in just to see like how this happens. How is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? You know, that sort of thing, possibly.
Yeah, I guess so, maybe. And since it's only like 5 episodes, I think it is.
Yeah, I think he's eliminated in episode 5.
Eliminated.
Like
the Terminator.
Yeah. Gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Now, all right, so Alexandria's new look.
Yes.
So far, so good. It's looking pretty full.
Yep.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, I noticed that they kind of filled it out. They repaired the walls. There's a water bridge.
Yeah,
I think
the sign is new.
By the way, I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, the sign is definitely new. Oh, yeah, because their old one was kind of brick and mortar. It was kind of like basic.
Well, and it was ominous. It was like,
the
mercy for the weak, vengeance for the plunderers and stuff.
Actually, do you remember what their sign said? The Alexandria sign? I didn't really
I think that's what it said. I think that's what it said.
The new one?
Oh, no, the new one just said, welcome to Alexandria.
Okay, yeah.
That was it.
I know I didn't record that. I record everything. One thing that so do you remember Noah?
Yes.
I think he mentioned way back that the water would do well to have like those walking, like floating bridges. If I'm not mistaken,
really?
When he was talking to Deanna's husband. I didn't write this down even, but like I remember as I'm panning through it in my mind, I'm like, oh wait, didn't Noah say something about this? Because he had plans for Alexandria too. So we'll go back, but I think it would be a good thing to kind of.
I don't want to think about Noah. His death was one of the worst.
Oh God, yeah. Well, don't think about the death. Think about how he lived.
He didn't live all that much.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's what kind of makes it worse, because like you saw the whole thing is that they built up the potential of Alexandria through Noah
all the time,
and then they ripped his guts out.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they ripped his face off.
That was horrible. Okay.
Yeah, I thought I'd get more pleasure from making you squirm, but like in the end, it's kind of like a backfire effect.
A bad backfire.
It just doesn't work.
You remember, and you're like, oh.
Like no.
I think you said that was one of the worst.
That was one of the worst that I ever thought. Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Just it's like when you try to shoot somebody, you just shoot yourself in the face. But yeah, okay.
Or when you point the finger at one person,
you're pointing four fingers back at you.
Right back at you. Yep.
Bitch. Yes, solar panels, batteries, windmills, powering things. It's Alexandria's. You get the impression that Alexandria's kind of living a little large.
Yeah, they've rebuilt. They've rebuilt.
Back in Bethlehem, they did have solar panels before, though, right? Yeah.
I think they did.
Yeah. Okay.
They've got a system down.
But boy, do they ever. What did you think of that scene with Judith? Judith and Michonne.
Was it Judith or baby Gracie?
Damn it. Wait a minute.
I know.
Where is baby Gracie?
I'm just throwing that out there. I firmly do believe that's Judith. But the cynical, dark-hearted person that I am is like, wait a second, is that baby Gracie though?
Yeah, but it does beg the question, where is baby Gracie?
Yeah. I mean, I think, honestly, I think that she's just part of like their bursting society, to be honest. I think that she's fine, Gracie. Personally, I just kind of like, I briefly thought that and then I just kind of moved on. I think that their little family is cute, you know, like you have Judith like drawing their little family and this person and that person, and you know, so you know they seem to have their little unit down. It's good.
All right, I got my eye on you. But now that you mentioned it, it was kind of like, because you know I was probably going to mention it too. like where's baby Gracie? Oh yeah, you sure that's not baby Gracie?
You sure that's not baby Gracie? I didn't hear anybody say Judith.
Yeah, exactly. But that does get me a little nervous. But also it would make me kind of like she should be there. What's up with that? Will we see her? I think we will.
I think we will, yeah.
But then again, all this talk about Andrew Lincoln, his last episodes, like, okay, maybe they'll put that off for a little while. Maybe they'll make baby Gracie magically disappear to support a more bloodthirsty, you know, to kind of keep her out of what may happen down the road, or what will happen probably. Yeah. The Whisperers. Oh yeah, so one thing about just after that scene, and I marked this down because it's kind of interesting to me, is the whole murder of crows thing. You remember when we were walking through the teaser and I mentioned the murder of crows, and the one thing that I mentioned was, yeah, that's what you call a flock of crows. It's like a murder, right? Well,
yes.
That was a shit ton of crows flying in the air, and that was even though like they were like looking up in marvel, I was kind of looking up and being like, oh, this is scary, this is ominous right now, because this this doesn't just mean what it means.
Yeah, no, definitely. No,
Carol,
you're right.
You know what it is. So
I'm not harking back.
So here's what I did. I actually looked up whether flocking crows is like a normal thing, and here's what came up.
This is not a flock of seagulls.
No, this is a flock. This is like the goth version of flock of seagulls. Many types of crows are solitary, but they will often forage in groups. Others stay in large groups. A group of crows is called a murder. When one crow dies, the murder will surround the deceased. Oh, you listen to this?
I am. I'm listening to it. It's interesting.
This funeral isn't to mourn the dead, though. The crows gather together to find out what killed their member. Then the murder of crows will band together and chase predators in a behavior called mobbing. But that's the thing. So that first part is very, I wouldn't say very prescient, but I think it ties in really well to what's going on in this episode, because of, you know, who gets murdered, or I guess not murdered, but it's the idea of somebody being put down, and then the murder will surround the deceased, you know, and the funeral isn't to mourn the dead but find out who did it. So and it's called mobbing.
So interesting.
So, you know, when you look at the end of the episode, which we'll get to, it kind of ties in, and I could see how easily that could play into what's going on in this episode, right? And the beginning part is just the foreshadowing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you quickly find out a lot of things. I mean, you find out already that the sanctuary is just like the only thing that they can do is make ethanol,
right?
And they can't even make enough of that to keep everybody going.
And it comes up later, but I thought it was a very good point and well thought out writing. Again, kudos to Angela Kang. Woohoo! But at one point later on, when they are in the sanctuary, Daryl and Rick are talking, and Daryl mentions about how, you know, the fact that, you know, this is a factory. You know, the sanctuary was a former factory, and this doesn't grow. It's not able to sustain life and grow things. That's why Negan had people do his bidding for him, because he knew that the land just wasn't capable of it. So I thought it was very interesting, because, you know, when I thought about it, I was like, well, that does make sense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the way Negan set this all up. you have to think about what the sanctuary is. It's the sanctuary. It's really just a place for people to be safe. His whole shtick was saving people. So that was the emphasis and priority of the place. It wasn't really to right, like you said, like farm or produce anything really. Like the best they could do was shop their wares on the floor, and giving the higher ups a grab bag, and and other people a purpose, like just taking count of their wares and their scraps and all that stuff that they can sell to other people for their, I guess, credits. I guess is what they like, a credit system,
right?
Other than the higher ups who could just take whatever they want.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, Carol. Yeah, I'm just chatting with Eye in the Dark too on Instagram.
Ooh,
at least we're still connected there.
What does he have to say?
By the way, I feel very embarrassed. Eye in the Dark too. It's like, I don't know if you're he or a she. I haven't been ingrained enough in you to know.
I know I shouldn't make assumptions.
What sex you are? Well, I don't know either. So there we go. But yeah, no, they're still listening. So that's great.
Yay!
But yeah, okay. So and like you said from the beginning, there's like this like rich flow of information that happens in seconds, and part of that is you're walking through with Eugene, and he's giving the 411 about the ethanol, and then Daryl at least, and you find out Daryl's kind of in charge of the sanctuary.
Yeah.
You thought Eugene would be, but like it's really Daryl,
right?
And that makes sense actually the more you think about it.
The more you think about it,
given what you find out. But you also find out really quickly is that they start even as they put up the walker as a scarecrow, and Daryl puts it down. It's like the way they reveal the characters that are putting up the scarecrow. You find out, okay, Zach McGowan, easily identifiable. He's been in many series like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I noticed him. I was like, God, he looks so familiar. I was like, he's been in a lot.
Yes, you've seen him as like kind of guest roles in many different shows. Oh yeah, he was in The 100. He's in all these shows that people really love. And he's called Justin on the show. And so the way they block that scene, they make it so that you kind of don't forget his face, right? So you just see how they kind of flip the camera, and they stay on his face for a little while, just in at the right amount of time to get you to be like, okay, I think I'm supposed to like keep my eye on this guy because he's significant. And you even see him in the sneak peeks in the next episode. He kind of pushes Henry, by the way.
Yes,
so this guy's going to be a character. He's going to be like he may even be the main, savior, save us, we are still Negan kind of person. Or at least it certainly seems that way. But you never know. Maybe they're going to fake out. Maybe he's a nice guy after all. I don't know. Seems to be all about surprises lately. So the next thing I noticed right away, and it's like all of this is through inference, is that they solve this communication problem that they were having. Do you remember the whole letters thing? That one episode where they had that monologue between the three people?
Yes.
So, and it was all done by letters. He left it in a mailbox, so they all picked it up and all that stuff. So it seems like they solved the communication problem by establishing like walkie relays. And by the way, this solves the same problem that Fear the Walking Dead had when everybody's all around.
Good point.
Yeah, so there's a little tie-in there. This is not even the main tie-in I wanted to make, but yeah, it's quite interesting. So they have these relays also, and and by the way, the one thing I wanted to tell you about that was, so Eye in the Dark is a she, but the one thing I wanted to that I thought maybe had been one thing that they learned from the Saviors is that I think they learned the relay system through the Saviors. It seemed as though the Saviors knew where everyone was going to be. They had relays to kind of relay information. So I think they did that better, and I think they learned that from them. Yeah. So again, so much information from so little.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I'm meticulous like that.
I have pages of notes.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, well lay some on me.
Well, let's see.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh no worries. So basically, after that point, we kind of start leading into this Washington D.C. run. I mean, we see that like Daryl, eventually he's on his bike. He runs into Jerry on the bridge, and it seems like they have points. Like they have different sort of points where they're
like sweeping.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, we later on see that they have like established routes, also like Route A versus Route B versus Route C versus Route D. I think.
Yes, that's right. A through D.
Yeah, I think it was like A through D.
I was going to write that down, but I didn't bother.
Well, there you go.
Because I knew you'd have it.
Pages. So basically, we end up seeing that, our group is basically doing a run. And this is the other thing that I have to say that I really liked about this episode.
Shipping Jesus and Aaron? Sorry.
Well, that is happening. So I'm just telling you right now, it's happening. You know, it happened in the comics, and it's clearly happening here.
Oh, it did happen in the comics?
Yeah. Yes,
Bro, oh yeah, I totally forgot. I mean, it's been a while, Carol. It's been
I know. It's been 6 months since this show's been on. You know.
Oh man.
I haven't put on my like nerd glasses in a while to be able to be like, well, comic book.
Dude, I hadn't realized it was 6 months.
Yeah, it's 6 months.
16 episodes, at least 3 months. Oh no, actually, that seems right. 4 times 4 is...
Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah, and then whatever. Yeah, you're right. Wow. Okay, sorry. Go on.
So no. I was saying that the thing that I really liked about this episode, and it kind of came to the forefront in this particular scene when our crew is in Washington D.C. proper, is the fact that like I love that in this episode we saw almost every single one of our characters, and we didn't have to segment the episode the way they've done in the past, where it's like this episode we're focusing on Tara and this episode we're focused on this. If you think about it, we saw pretty much every single character except Negan, which makes sense because obviously he's in his cell. It's a different sort of, you know, dynamic altogether. But otherwise, we pretty much saw every single character.
Yeah, by way of like just motion.
By way of just motion. And it was all...
Even Rosita.
That's what I mean. Everybody, Eugene, Rosita, Father Gabriel, Jadis, everybody. Even Oceanside people, for goodness sake.
That's
you
right.
basically saw everybody in some way, shape, or form, but it wasn't done in a way that was forcing it down your throat. It wasn't done in a way that felt ad hoc. It felt very seamless and natural in the way it was presented. Everybody was doing their role as they are in this new beginning, this new world, and we got a chance to see it and how it all comes together. And I thought that was it was executed very, very well and very effectively. And I really like that. So
it was awesome.
It was very well done. And so then
it doesn't hurt that like the core, so you got the core group going to DC first of all, which
it wasn't even just the core group. It was even bigger than that because Jadis,
for sure.
Maybe I should call her Anne.
Because Rick's calling her Anne. Sexist.
She is. Well, that's what she wants to refer to now. By the way, I thought it was very cool that we found out that Anne was a teacher.
Yes.
The apocalypse. I thought that was a cool little thing. I was like, all right.
Well, maybe you could clear this up for me too, because was she a teacher at the museum, or was she a teacher who brought her children to the museum?
I got the impression that she was a teacher that brought her students to the museum.
Okay.
That's what I got from her dialogue.
Yeah, because she's speaking in that. Okay, so she's speaking in that like kind of southern accent, which is pretty accurate kind of to Georgia, that general southern region, I have to say, compared to Rick, by the way, which is not at all kind of southern, almost.
Rick is like, yeah.
He's like more Texas than he is like South. Like there's Texas, there's Southwest, you know, and then there's East Texas versus West Texas. So that's a whole other thing. But he's supposed to be from Georgia. He's supposed to have kind of like a specific Georgian accent. So, but Jadis kind of does pull it off easily. I just can't.
Yeah.
It's like now that she's speaking natural. Well, hold on, let me roll it back. Now that she's speaking English, it's like the accent kind of throws me off a little bit.
You're like, oh wow.
I'm like, oh, there's a speaking voice there. She knows how to speak English. That's interesting.
Go figure.
Can you remember all those nights we were just like just frustrated, like raging at the heapsters?
But it was like I love to hate them, that I was just like, what the hell is this crap? It's like
this wild card of a group.
Yeah, well, it was such a wild card, and it was one of those like I don't know how to phrase it, but it's just one of those situations where it's like you just wish. I kept hoping that somebody would just sort of like state the obvious and be like, Rick would talk to his group back in Alexandria, and somebody just say like, these people, man, like kind of fucking weird, right? Like, you know, they talk, guys. Like, what do they talk like? You know, what the hell with the names and the Jadis and the Tamiel. It's like, you know, they're all. It was one of those things I would have loved for somebody just to state the obvious and be like, what the hell, you know? But I mean, so that was that kind of thing. It's like one of those things that you love to hate, because every time they would come on, it's like I would roll my eyes like, oh God, freaking garbage people. Here we go.
No, every time you'd see a scene where like it just shows the heaps, you're like, oh, this again. I'm gonna have to put up with this.
It's like, here we go, this again. It's like, fight you, I will. Like, just some sort of like ridiculous.
Or just like fight. That's all they would say. Like, well, fight who?
It was all Yoda speak, all of it.
Fight you, I will.
It was all just Yoda talk.
I would settle for that, but it wasn't even that. It's like, what are we dealing with here?
Oh, God.
Anyway,
See,
yes.
the thing is, it makes sense. But
Okay, we have this PTSD. We just need to work it out, and
just
then
need
we
to
can move
work through
on.
it. So I'm happy that Anne is now sort of like, okay, she's a normal person. She used to be a teacher. She used to bring her students here. But basically, so the Washington, D.C. run really, first of all, before they even get into the museum, so much fun to see like Washington, D.C. proper.
Oh,
finally,
yeah.
To actually
Well,
see
you know,
the Capitol in the background, the Washington Monument all decayed. But you know that what I was waiting for, because you texted me like when it happened.
Absolutely.
I was like, finally, freaking zombie senator in suit and tie, like knock this guy out right now.
Oh, better yet, you know what'd feel even more satisfying? I think that was either a zombie clerk or zombie. Is it a clerk? No, clerk is for judges. A zombie. So my instinct is that it's a zombie lobbyist.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, he did look more like a lobbyist than like a senator. You're right.
Exactly.
You are right. Yeah.
Or like an intern for a lobbyist. That makes more sense because the suit was kind of cheaper. You know?
I don't have that kind of hate for lobbyists or anything like
I have
that.
tremendous hate for lobbyists.
Really?
Because most of them are former politicians.
Yeah.
Now they are.
Yeah.
It didn't always used to be that way.
I hear you. But I would have loved to have seen some more like senators just get annihilated.
Well, there are more representatives, so there's more fodder.
Yeah.
You could throw at this. Hey, man,
Yeah.
I want to see more of that. But do you think they're going to go to DC even again? I mean, that must have been a CG production, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that there's maybe they won't shoot scenes exactly like that, but I tend to think that they might, just because for me, I think that all this hinting of the helicopter, which obviously like came up last season, like we kept hinting at seeing this helicopter, and it's now even in the opening credits, you know, the new opening credits, it's the helicopter. So in my mind, I'm convinced that the helicopter is part of the Commonwealth that is in the comics. That's part of Georgie's group.
Yeah.
And that is essentially like
It's part of the background of the new the key art.
Yeah. It's a fraction of the Commonwealth is basically like a fraction of the government that survived the apocalypse. And it's like a huge thriving community with like, you know, like actual community, like practically city state kind of thing. They've got like coffee shops, you know, like they're doing good, you know, and like basically, you know, to me, yeah, I would think that something like, I mean, in the comic book, it's not in Washington, D.C. proper. It's more like in the Midwest. I think it's like in Ohio or something like that. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like it makes sense that it would be more Washington, D.C. based because, you know what I've always said. In my mind, if shit hit the fan tomorrow, under Washington, D.C., the mother of all bunkers exists. I'm convinced of that. They probably have like a city-state underneath with like coffee shops and stadiums and all sorts of stuff, like in my mind.
Well, yeah. Your obsession with coffee, and which we got in Fear the Walking Dead, by the way, was a low-rent version, but it's no Keurig.
Oh, God, it's no Keurig. Listen, I might potentially be like stepping down from my Keurig, so, you know, it's not the end all be all.
Well, no, we're growing up, you know. It's like, it's not college, it's not post-college anymore.
Yeah.
We're grinding our own beans.
Yeah, we're getting,
Sophisticated.
Sophisticated.
That seems like an Eddie purchase, though. Like,
what, the Keurig?
no, like, well, previously, but now it'd be like, hey, honey, let's grind our own beans, and I have this machine that'll make the coffee straight. We'll grind the beans and then push out the coffee.
He would be into something like that, but I purchased a Mr. Coffee that was on clearance at the supermarket just because, like, for me, in my mind, I'm so practical and logical based in the sense that, like, now we don't live this solitary life where it's just like the two of us. It's like we always have, like, not always, but a lot of times it's like we have people over and people visit and whatever. And so a Keurig is not the most efficient use when it's like one cup at a time. It's like, okay, here's a cup, next, here's a cup, next. It's just easier to just make a pot of coffee and just pour some in each cup. You know what I mean? Instead of like, it's Keurig is nice when it's like two people, but once you're like at 4 or 6 people, then it starts becoming like, okay, this is a little cumbersome.
Yeah, you can't serve a whole bunch of, like, you could, but you'd be like,
it's kind of a pain. Yeah, exactly. It's kind
did I ever mention like what I had not? It was like 2005, and it was the first time I've never heard a Keurig before, and I'm working in this office, right? Mm-hmm. And our company had rented out a desk as a part of this other guy's office, and so I'm working there, and every few minutes I'm hearing in the back this thing that sounds like this. It sounds exactly like this. And it sounds like somebody's really sick trying to blow their nose.
Oh.
And I'm like, you know when you feel like you feel bad for someone, but it's also like the noise is just so obnoxious, so you're caught in this place where you feel bad about feeling bad, like feeling like horrible about somebody else. Like, God, I wish they'd stop like blowing their nose in the back room. And then you find out it's a coffee maker. I'm like, what kind of sorcery is this? Like, what's going on here?
Sorcery.
A coffee machine that sounds like snot? Like,
oh, that's not appealing. That is not appealing.
No, but like now it's like normal life. So it doesn't quite sound as nose blowy anymore, but still. Oh, I have to warn you. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Because my computer is frozen. Now, just to let everybody know on Instagram, which, by the way, we're going to lose the archive for that now. So anybody who's listening live on Instagram, there's not going to be an archive of this. So Eye in the Dark, you're in a rare position to benefit from this right now since we're live. And I feel like the stream is, by the way, it's going to cut out at any minute because I started the Facebook stream live, and that seems to be the only thing that has a countdown. So, bummer. We can't do that again. Da, 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 da. But guess what? I can't even look at my notes. I literally have to like open up my phone. I have to go to Google Keep. I started keeping my Keep Notes in the Squawking Dead account now. I just for this one so far. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Oh, so good. So sorry I had to do that. But yeah, why were we talking about a cure? Oh, because of Commonwealth.
I don't know either.
Started getting the snot the first time. Okay, anyway.
God.
So good.
By the way, so I want to say something else about the Washington, D.C. run is the throwback to the season, to the pilot, walking into Atlanta. It just kind of gave me that old vibe of being on the horse and, you know, all of that. It was kind of gave me those old vibes, I would say.
Yeah, well, of Rick, you know, walking in Atlanta, but like this time he's like with people. It's great.
Yeah. And much more secure and strong than before, where it was
and like, safe. Yeah,
it's like, what the hell am I walking into, you know?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to insert before we continue was that you really do start to notice what Greg Nicotero was saying in Talking Dead. And it's like the one thing I remembered that I didn't need to take notes on because as I was watching, I was like noticing it, is that he mentions that the walkers, these like individual walkers that show up in the show, they're not like throwaways. They're like, each one is individual. They each have a little quirk about them. They each die in a different way. And I thought that was kind of noteworthy. So when you watch the episode again, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like this one's head gets chopped off. This one has that big mouth agape thing as they're riding down Washington, D.C. And then, you know, obviously the spider walker and the scarecrow from the beginning. The creepy intro to the museum as they walk in. That little freak show kind of like the hands go above the counter and it's shaking and it's trying to pick itself up. It's just so like there's these little. So it's not only that the individual walkers that have some emphasis, but then there's also like these like horror elements. Like they bring like a horror element, like a little exaggeration to the walkers that are kind of, you know, that kind of draws you into that kind of. It makes you scared of them again.
Yeah.
Which is something they need to keep doing every once in a while to kind of make you understand how rough this is. I think that's what, and it's something that we said in season 8, by the way, is that, and Carl's death really brought us back down to earth when we realized at any point your number could get punched. You know, your ticket could get punched. And Carl's death is a huge reminder of that, is that who is the enemy? You know, who's ultimately, who's against who in the end? And so when you introduce these little like kind of horror elements, there's that kind of, there's like an entertainment factor, sure, right? Because that's kind of cool. But then it also kind of reminds you, oh, wait, these guys are still dangerous. Even though these guys are confident, they're dangerous. And they'll show you why, you know? And you see why in the episode, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if as long as you're going to do it in a cool way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Yes. So you mentioned Jadis and the Seeds. You mentioned going in, reminding you of a Western.
Well, they went into the museum, and I think the idea was that it was supposed to be the Museum of Natural History. I think that was supposed to be the idea.
In D.C.?
Yeah, I think so. They filmed it at the Georgia Capitol, and this is what they talked about on Talking Dead, which I thought was really interesting. They filmed there, and I thought the funniest part was that they met, was it the governor of Georgia? I think it was, that they met him there. And
when you said governor and stopped right there, I was just like,
I know, what? The governor.
David Morrissey? Where's it going? What's going on here?
So Norman Reedus, I think, was talking about how like they compared knives because they had created this whole new like melee sort of weapons for him, which we'll get to later. And
so that's true. Accessorizing some more in the apocalypse.
Yeah, so he like there was a picture of them together, and he has like the governor has this little like Swiss Army knife or whatever.
You keep saying that
on the keychain. I'm sorry, he is, but he has this little like Swiss Army knife, you know, on a keychain, and Daryl has this humongous like blade knife or whatever.
Reedus, but like as Daryl.
Exactly. And so they asked him like, how in the world were you able to be so close to him with like such a huge weapon, you know? And
without Secret Service getting triggered or what?
And he was like, well, there was like a ton of security, and he's like, when I did have it out, there was that initial sort of like, you know, stirring of like, oh, you know, he's like, but then they kind of relaxed because it's like, you know, this is Georgia. It's like, whatever. I was like, that's true, dude.
That's true. It's not like it's the mayor of Georgia. It's like the governor. It's like the whole state. It's like
the whole state.
I'm aware of what my state sounds like.
Armed to the teeth. So like, let's be real here.
Concealed carry. Open carry. Actually, I'm not sure about the.
I don't know about the laws in Georgia, but they definitely carry. Whether it's concealed or open, they carry. So I'm just saying.
Bottles or guns.
Yeah.
Concealed or opened. Yeah. Containers.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But we find out, they go into the museum and we find out that they each have their marching orders. And we find out that they kind of went in already in mind for various things. And basically my list had seeds, canoes, wagon, plow. So it's basically a mixture of agricultural tools and vehicles.
Yes, so that's right.
That's basically.
And by the way, that little nod in the beginning, you see this little glance that Anne gives to one of the banners, the fine art exhibit. It kind of connects with who she was.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I managed to catch that in the second watch. I was like, oh, interesting. They're doing that. Nice.
That's a good point. Yeah. And then I like the little details that we notice in the museum because there's a lot of little details. And, you know, the walkers underneath that sort of glass trellis floor. You see them there in an area that's labeled the Manifest Destiny area. Which
is that what they call it?
Yeah, there's a big sign down there that says Manifest Destiny, which is super appropriate.
That is like really appropriate. I didn't even see that. That is so like prescient about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Ooh, exactly. That gives me chills, by the way. That's crazy.
It was in the Manifest Destiny area of the museum.
Oh my God. That means so much for what's going on politically speaking.
Of course.
Wow.
West.
Good call. Good catch. Oh,
I love that. I'm telling you, it was great.
Clap.
Thank you.
Now, I don't know if the Instagram, well, I could find out if the Instagram thing cut out, but what I wanted to do, because Eye in the Dark had asked about this, was right before we even get into any of that, we need to talk about the title sequence because I need to know. I need to know, Carol, with all your talk about
oh my God
about Fear the Walking Dead. Now they didn't break. They didn't break with the music.
They didn't break with the music, and that's basically the most important part.
Because I
don't mind them changing the sequence because of the fact that they've changed the sequence before, albeit slightly, not as much of a difference here. You know what I mean? Like in past seasons, like they've tweaked it and changed it to kind of add new things. Like I mean, when they added Jeffrey Dean Morgan as like Negan. You know, there's a part in the sequence that has like a oven, and then there's like a rod or something. You know, so it's like. Yeah, so they definitely have like added things in to kind of represent, you know, certain characters or whatever. This one is a full departure, just like with a totally different sequence altogether. But I really liked it because I think it's, you know, it goes along with the whole idea. This is a new beginning, you know, a new beginning, yes, but obviously with still respecting the core of what this is about, which is, you know, an ongoing story of survival.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more reflective of. First of all, because I mean, I think you would agree that the title sequences in the last 8 seasons kind of more reflected on the core group, more or less, right?
Yes.
You see like images from them and their families and whatnot and their past, like mostly Rick, which is, and they needed to kind of tweak that so that it was more broad. It was more about some of the other new, more and increasingly beloved characters of the Walking Dead. You start to notice.
Yeah.
So, but I loved it too. I really, really, really did love it. I mean, it's one of those things that when you make a change and it's kind of a little old, little new, it breathes like a little bit more. It's kind of like a dusting off. It's like, oh, okay, let's change the visuals just a bit. You know, keep the music, change the visuals. Because if they would have changed the music, I think that would put off people. I think. Besides, what would they change it to too? So
right, exactly.
Yeah, this is it. This is the one. Bear McCreary did a good job with that intro, and it's just timeless. Yeah, like you said, timeless. It sticks with you.
It sticks with you. It does, and you hear it, and it automatically resonates.
You know what I think? I think Fear's mistake was right from the beginning. Like they picked something that I don't think would have been considering. I don't think it took into account where the story was going to end up going ultimately, which is why they had to ditch it as soon as possible. Ditch the opening, the title sequence, because I think even by the third season they kind of did away with it completely. They didn't really do it. You know, they didn't have a title sequence as much. They did away with it most of the time, if I'm not mistaken. So by the time the fourth season rolled about. Anyway, by the way, we're not live on Instagram anymore, so, you know, and we don't have an archive, so we can't go back to it. Can't go back. Wah, wah. Exactly. I don't even know if we're streaming on YouTube or Facebook too, so I think that's over and done with. So we're just doing this for the recording right now. But yeah, it's so, you know, I don't think it's Fear's fault necessarily. It's something that you'd have to get right from the first shot, and that's a lot of pressure, especially when you consider how wild a journey they've gone. And they've crossed several states, that was countries technically, and then meanwhile, our Walking Dead crew has kind of been... They haven't
made too much progress.
They haven't really made any progress. It's really crazy.
I remember when...
Morgan running across state lines.
I know.
On foot.
Like, I remember when... Like, I remember when... what was it? I think it was... Maybe it was season 5. It might have been with Beth. And I remember when she was captured by the Grady Hospital people or whatever.
Right.
And they decided, okay, we got to go over there. And it's in, you know, but Grady Hospital's in Atlanta, so we have to just kind of head over there. And I was just like, wait a second, we're still this close to Atlanta?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I was like, really? We haven't made that much progress, have we? In 5 seasons. We're still around Atlanta, whatever. So finally, when we at least went to Virginia, I'm like, all right, well, hey, at least we're in a different state now, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like we got through, you know, Georgia, North and South Carolina. All right, Virginia, okay, that's progress. 3 states.
Yeah, and it's funny, like you finally get to Washington D.C. and Eugene is not even, you know, integral. Like all that fuss about him trying to go there. It's like, well, you're finally there. Oh, there's nothing here? Okay, good. Done.
Well, until he gets a hold of that ham radio, mark my words, that'll happen.
I'm hoping so. At this stage, I just mean, well, you know, I don't know when it's going to happen, but maybe sooner than we think, right?
I know. No, things might move faster than we think, honestly. I mean, considering what happened at the end of this episode, I think things
are going to escalate
faster. That things escalated for me in this episode faster than I thought they would. I was pleased that they did, but I did not think that they would. So
that's the thing about the show and what they're trying to do is that they not only are they establishing like physical location, they managed to through camera movements and keeping certain people together as they move through different communities. They're establishing where they are, what they're about, but they're also along the way they're sprinkling in what's been going on with them for the past year and a half, 18 months. Which is the time jump, and so you're getting all that too. You're getting a little bit of that, and you're getting the sense that things have been good. But what you also start to notice is that though things have been pretty good, there's this undercurrent that's kind of rising. This niggling feeling and that's of politics that we'll get into, but that's slowly rising, like deep-seated resentments that people have had to live with over time, and it's just bubbling up until it's like until it becomes a problem, they're fine. But it's becoming a problem, and it's becoming a problem quickly. Yeah. So, but that actually kind of brings me to this next point, which is it kind of brings us into this room because as you see these guys walk into the room, it's all of them together.
Yes.
The Manifest Destiny floor and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I noticed really quickly how many people like are in this room. It's almost like they're trying to reestablish like this new core group of people that are here. It's kind of like what we were saying before about like establishing what these people are about and the kind of strong unity that they have now. Like they're all together. They're all for one for all. You know, they're all working in sync and everything like that. And I couldn't help but think that you can already tell the writing's on the wall. Like you need this moment of everybody cooperating together, being a strong single unit, because as the in the framework of a conflict, you know what I mean, like a problem they need to solve, like getting this wagon down from the stairs, and so you have this like not problem solving, but like a team building almost, but it's for you to know how strong these people have been together, like as the audience.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're setting the stage for like, okay, this is how strong they are now. And when things get crazy, you'll start to see like this is like the starting point, and you'll see how bad it gets. So that's why they're doing that, because they want you to have like a frame of reference of how striking it is when things start to fall apart. You you could see things fall apart and you'd be like, oh, that's the world, but like no, that's not their world. They've been safe. They've been happy. They've been fed. They've been working. They're a community. They're a tight unit. It's kind of like what Rick has been saying throughout the episode, is like he's refusing to see that there are these undercurrents, that there are these divisions.
Yeah.
And so he kind of sees what we see.
Yes.
But then we also see the other part, and Rick's not seeing that part. It's really clever. Really goddamn clever.
Yeah.
How they're able to do all this stuff at once. Like showing people, dropping hints, sprinkling in the past, establishing unity, etc., and then and already seeing that there are divisions and problems.
Yeah.
We can see that. So I don't know. I just love it. I love how they did this. The more I think about it, the more I love it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna skip the Spider Walker because it's kind of like I just love the horror element of it.
No, that was awesome.
Oh my god, and especially having it happen to Avi Nash too. Like it's just one of you need to see him more.
I know that. This is what I mean. We saw everybody in this episode.
Everybody got a taste.
Everybody.
It's like open that Godiva mixed chocolate set, and you're like, what do I try now? Oh, he's right here.
Yeah.
Avi Nash. Tastes delicious.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I was just excited about Avi Nash.
Oh god.
Okay, I'm in it. I'm good.
You're clearly in it.
I'm good.
The other thing I noticed in terms of little details there, since it's a point that I have written right after I wrote Spider Walker. Oh, I literally have that written in my notebook, Spider Walker. Oh,
it was so good though, wasn't it?
It was very well done, but
so like creep show.
God. That's my biggest fear, right?
Really, spiders? I've learned
not spiders, bugs specific, not so
coming
much
out of people.
Not coming out of people. Like I actually think that spiders are quite beautiful. Like I find them like a very elegant bug, especially like black widows and like those kind of like spirit kind of spiders.
Daddy long legs.
Yeah, I think they're very beautiful like creatures, and spider webs and everything in general, because it warms my cold dark heart. But so appropriate for the time of year it is. But I hate cockroaches. Cockroaches will make me crawl into a fetal position on the floor and cry. And it has happened because Eddie, like, it even came up when we were watching, because he fell asleep at some point during the episode, because like I said, he's an early to bed person, but he did see that part. And he was like, oh, he remembered a practical joke he played on me years ago for like Halloween, where he bought like some like fake kind of like water bugs or whatever that looked very realistic.
Oh no.
And I don't know where he put them or whatever. I remember that I damn near, like I cried when I saw those things. Like I was so freaked out. He thought it was hilarious. Not at all. And there was another time that when we were still in New York, and I think I was still living in the city at the time.
Was this the first time or the second time? Because you should have learned the first time.
No, the joke was the second time, because I think we were already living out in our house, outside the city at that point. But this other situation was when I think I was still living in the city. So I don't think we were married yet. I think we were dating. And we went to take the subway, and I think we were on 14th Street and 8th Avenue, like the AC line over there. And so we were on the platform, and I think it was raining heavily. And when it rains, critters try to go away from the rain or whatever. So all of a sudden,
I think they just follow the water, but yeah. Ugh.
All of a sudden, from like some sort of like, I don't know if it was like a sewer gap or I don't know what it was.
So
but
the
all
floor?
of a sudden, all these like freaking giant roaches start like crawling around on like the platform floor. I was like, oh, I almost lost my shit. And then luckily, like the train was coming into the station, especially because then one of those little buggers flew onto a woman's leg, and she nearly lost her damn mind.
By the way, that's when I would lose my mind.
When that train came into the station, I almost was at the point of getting superpower strength, and I was going to pry those doors open if it didn't open like immediately absolutely. And I never forgot that, because I was like Eddie asked me, he's like, what would you have done if that flew on you? I was like, I probably would have fallen onto the tracks. Like,
that's what I was thinking as you were regaling us with this tale, because it's kind of like, oh, it's all over for me. If they start flying, I start flying.
Oh no!
If they can grow wings, I grow wings.
No. So that spider walker was nothing. I mean, not that it was nothing, but I'm just saying it was like I can appreciate that. I mean, I was like, whoa, but I was like, yeah.
Oh God, the way the flashlight, by the way, was like,
yeah,
like he was just like freaking out, and it was just flashing on his face. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Well done. Well done.
Greg Nicotero must be having like a field day too, because it's just kind of like, it's his wheelhouse, you know?
It's his wheelhouse, man. You know what? I wish I could hang out with Greg Nicotero. Greg Nicotero strikes me as like that cool uncle that still goes to like Guns N' Roses concerts and stuff.
Like, he's so cool. He's kind of like your dad's best friend.
Exactly.
That's like less your uncle, because that's too familial.
Yeah, that's true.
But then he hangs out with you when you get older.
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like I understand what you mean. It's like your dad's friend. It's like, oh yeah, uncle. But you know, you call them uncle.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like it's like that kind of relationship. I
Hey,
just
Uncle
think
Greg.
Yeah, you know.
So good. Thank you, Greg.
But what I wrote after that is I like the little moment between Anne and Father Gabriel.
Yes.
The de-evolution of man. I was like, I like that.
Intelligent design. It's as a joke. It's so good.
I liked it very much. I also liked, and Eddie pointed this out, the man of religion commentating on evolution.
Oh, that's what makes it so funny.
Yeah, exactly. Man of the cloth.
Yeah, because he's kind of he's like a grounded dude. Like he gets it. Like he sees the evolution. He's kind of like, in a way, it's like you could look at it both ways. He's like it's knocking evolution a little, but it's also kind of like you could easily say that it's just kind of like, you know, oh, so this is what intelligent design is. We made it all the way here to get to there. Yeah.
I just like that moment.
Yeah, I want more of that. I want more of that Gabriel. We had too much of the other Gabriel.
Yeah.
It was good, but it was just kind of like, oh, no mas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah. And I like that they bonded. I want to see more of them together, too.
I did. I like that. I like that a lot. I was a big fan.
So yeah, what was your take on the whole scene with Cindy and Daryl? Like the thing about the boat.
I wrote it on my notebook right here. I said, Daryl speaks! Exclamation point.
Yes. That's part of it for me.
That was like huge to me. Like, I mean, first of all, it wasn't like a grunt. It was a sentence. It was like, you all right? I was like, oh my God, you all right? It's a sentence. I mean, that's right there. I was
fragment, but to
But I was like, whoa, you know, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that right there showed me, okay, we're doing things differently. I was like, Daryl's going to be getting some lines, some serious lines. And he talked about his brother, you know, he kind of like harkened back to like his brother and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I like this, Daryl. I like this.
And they fleshed I mean, in the most meager way, but they fleshed out his backstory just a little bit, just enough to say he had friends. They did intervene, that sort of thing. Because it's an observation that we made about the comparisons between Fear and The Walking Dead, is that we know more about the Fear characters, and we don't really know anything about the Walking Dead characters at all. Like even to the point where we meet up with Negan, and we don't. There was potential to find out something more about him, and it's almost as if any of the showrunners were kind of like, that's not important. What's important is now, the recent history, which is fine. If you want to continue with that, that's fine, and I don't mind that at all. I think we learned really quickly how unimportant that is technically.
Yeah.
As much as people wanted it, it's a continuing theme, you know. But the thing that I noticed a little bit about this scene, which as amazing as Daryl speaking is, and I wrote that down too, was that we're starting to see that people have moved a little bit beyond surviving, and now because they have this security and they have, you know, time on their hands, they have duties, but it's not about like every day is another danger, every day somebody's on guard and night shift and duty. There's a lot of people around now, so people are covering things, you know. There's less overlap. I mean, there's more overlap. People can do more, more people to do more things. So it's kind of like they're starting to get used to peace, and when you do that, you start to realize, oh, I can now afford to think about, you know, my brother not making it, you know, my brother on the canoe. So it's like you're starting to see people, I don't know, like living their traumas, like things are starting to come out, you know, they're starting to think about things, and people who are surviving don't think about things or stuff and things.
Right.
So I think that, and that's important, I think, because because you do start to see that in certain places in the episode. You start to see people, thinking about, political moves and putting the needs of certain people above the others, and this like struggle between survival and like what happens when you get complacent and you realize this world, you forget that this world is, the dangers are all everywhere, and then you start to really think about things. So again, sprinklings of like ideas that are floating around in this universe. It's just really cool, really cool.
I'm a fan.
Oh yeah. So then you mentioned the seeds and the Doomsday Vault, basically, without even knowing it.
We found out that there was an election at Hilltop because we see Maggie, Michonne, and Carol.
Yep, sprinkling in time.
My queens of the apocalypse together. And so we find out that Carol's with Ezekiel. Michonne is fine, and Maggie won the election at Hilltop, and that Gregory seems to be being cordial, which is weird to her, which we find out more about that later. But at that point we see that Michonne notices a sign that says a more perfect union, and I feel that is our theme for this episode. Yeah,
that's right.
A more perfect union.
Right, and how that is seeming impossible. But it's like you have all these like ideas floating around, and who's willing to unite, who's willing to cooperate and who's willing to not, and how is that gonna, it seems like that's gonna tear everybody apart, at least it seems that way. But Michonne has got her eye on the prize, and she's still kind of hanging on to like, she's like getting ideas, like, and that's the one thing I wanted to talk about also, is kind of like, do you think that as the episode closes, you start to realize, do you think this may have come sooner, this idea of a charter? Because maybe we wouldn't have gotten to this point.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps you wouldn't have gotten to this point. I mean, I tried to think about like the situation if it was in respect to like actual history, like what's happened after World War II or World War I, that kind of thing.
Or the Revolutionary War even.
Or the Revolutionary War, just anything like that. And I think that is I think that they probably would have benefited from having some sort of charter. They probably were so focused on the rebuilding aspect that kind of took precedence over everything, especially in dire circumstances like this where you're just trying to like survive. Oh, excuse me. But I think that, it probably could have benefited from not getting to this point, because, I mean, the way I think about it, and we'll see it later when they actually go into the sanctuary and the graffiti on the wall and whatever, a lot of that kind of discontent, I think about it sometimes with World War II, where, people always wonder, well, how does somebody like Hitler come to power? And it's like, Germany was still reeling from the First World War, and they were not the superpower that they obviously are today. And when you're in need, somebody comes into power and says, hey, I'm going to provide you this, and I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to make this country great again, or whatever. No pun intended. That was not intended.
I feel like I've heard that before.
Exactly. Think
Moving
about
along.
That for a moment. Not to sit on my get on my soapbox or anything, but
get in my little open mic.
But this is how these crazies get into power. It's like situations like that. So, which is probably the opening that Negan got to be able to get into power,
Yeah, vacuum, yeah.
Yeah, especially since you realize that, the sanctuary is not a fruitful location. So, they struggle.
So in that sense, Rick is kind of right about one thing, is that, like, they're just hungry. If everything
hungry.
was great, they wouldn't have a problem.
No, exactly. They're just hungry. Yeah. I agree with that.
By the way, that makes me think of another thing, which is kind of like, and it's something that I've been thinking about on a personal level, and that's forgetting about what ends up happening. But somebody once told me whether or not you would rather have, what would you rather have? And you can answer the question, and we can answer the question in the context of the show, but would you rather have a politician that there's occasional corruption, but things get done? Or would you rather have complete honesty and nothing gets done? And I answered too quickly, and then I had to kind of backtrack. Like, because what you feel the obvious answer should be, right? But then you start thinking. So, I mean, I ask you this one, and then I'll go into why I asked it.
Gosh, That's a tough one. I mean, I personally rather know. I'd prefer the honesty.
Right, okay.
I mean, personally.
But nothing gets done.
But at least I know, and then I at least know what I need to do. Because I hate, from my perspective, I hate feeling that I can rely on somebody, and in reality I can't. You know what I mean? I don't want somebody to sell me the world, and in reality, like, they're not going to be able to commit to giving me that. You know?
Okay. It's meaning like that like what? Well, so there's corruption and there's false promises, but
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. It's like a campaign promise versus like what happens in reality. But let's say that person made a false campaign promise, but then is completely transparent, is not corrupt, and blah blah blah. But they just can't seem to get anything done. You know, one way or the other. You know.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
And the reason why I bring it up, and that's fine. That's a big that's a philosophical question, because the reality is it's not really an either or situation. That's not how the life works in terms of politics. But anyway. The reason why I asked that is because when you think about it, would Hilltop have been better off? This is going to sound bad, but would Hilltop have been better off with Gregory leading, but Maggie kind of sweeping up behind him, kind of like making things happen? I asked that because of things that happen, but also kind of like, well, in a way, it's like the devil, you know, in a weird way, not like in the kind of like, in the kind of way that like, okay, I know what I'm getting, but as long as Maggie's around to kind of wrangle him, I think I'm okay with that. You know, like he can say, it's kind of like having, it's like the Queen of England when you think about it. Like she doesn't really do anything, and people know that she doesn't really do anything, and they know that their taxes go into this pageantry and whatnot, but they really know that kind of Congress really, or sorry, the Parliament really takes care of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it made me really think about, like, would they have been better off? And now that we know where things are kind of going and how that affects the entire show going forward, because it really is a springboard what ends up happening.
Right.
But I often wonder, and like, what do you think about that? Just me throwing that out there. I wonder.
What, if they would have been better off with Gregory at the helm?
Yeah, but considering that, like, Maggie would end up sweeping up behind him and putting him in line and all that stuff.
I don't know. I was very pleased at the outcome, not because I dislike Sander Berkeley, because I think he's awesome, just like I thought Stephen Off was awesome. But
pardon me.
I think what occurred, I mean, the whole sequence of everything that happens with Gregory is very well done, and for me illustrates very clearly Maggie's strength and stance. And we'll get into it more later in terms of like Maggie's approach to things versus Rick's approach to things, and what does that say about their styles of governing. Exactly. In general, and their approach to how they view society.
Well, and how they kind of react to having power too, by the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in the blog post, and, you know, we'll talk about it when it happens. But I mean, look, Negan killed Abraham and Glenn and numerous other people and was essentially given life in prison by Rick. Right. Gregory attempts to murder Maggie in the first, because they murder in the first attempt.
Through proxy.
Right. Via, you know, the blacksmith, and then...
Or conspiracy to commit murder or something.
Conspiracy to commit murder, and then murder in the first, when he tries to kill her directly, you know, himself. And, True. And Maggie, you know...
Attempted murder.
Yeah, and, you know, which is different from Negan actually killing numerous people. Like, he attempts to murder her, and she swiftly, publicly executes him and makes him an example.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you know, it's... Because that's the thing. It's like, there are many different ways that you could have executed him. It's like, but it was made to be an example.
And then she says as much, too, at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yep, very much.
And by the way, that
which
kind
I
of...
don't disagree with.
Right.
By the way.
I mean... But what you know what's funny is that I was looking at it, and why at the time I was thinking like, oh, this only makes sense. Maggie's right. He's lived far too long. He's been able to get by, and Gregory says as much. Like, I'm still here, and it's like, that's a double-edged sword, though. It's like you're still here because you managed to weasel and whittle your way through things to be able to make it this far. So I mean, all the credit in the world, but the fact that you don't appreciate that, you know, like, you don't appreciate how close you've been to dying, or the fact, I mean, like, there's just no comprehension of, like, and you could easily say that Gregory is talented, that he does, like he said to Simon, he says he does have the juice, you know, like he knows how to talk, you know, to get what he wants. So that could be. But, like, there's that extra factor of, like, you don't know that this is, it's like you're completely unaware that you're living in cowboy times. This isn't like a world where, in a world where there was no walkers, there's no apocalypse, Gregory could have gotten really far in life. Really far. Like, because he knows the boundaries, and he can weave his way through them really expertly, getting his way to the top, gaining influence along the way. But in this kind of world, where people don't really follow turn signals or stop signs, and sometimes they'll just flip on you. Man, he's lucky. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And so, but getting back to the point, though, is that I was on board with you until Michonne said something to the effect of, like, she says, I don't know if she says this outright in the episode or like somewhere down the line, but she says something to the effect of, like, you basically, you killed him without, like, due process.
I don't know. Did she say that in the episode?
I don't know if she said it in the sneak peek or, like...
I think it was in the sneak peek. It might have been the sneak peek.
Which is important. I think it's good to bring up, because that really kind of snapped me back in place. It's kind of like, well, what we just did to Gregory, we didn't even do to Negan. You know, like we...
Well, that's the difference in Rick and Maggie's styles of approaching things.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you have this is jumping ahead, but I mean, even the conversation between Rick and Maggie, when, you know, Rick's talking to Maggie about rebuilding. Oh, sorry. Rebuilding.
Sleep patterns.
So sad.
About rebuilding that bridge, yeah.
About rebuilding the bridge and about food, supplies, labor, that sort of thing. And she's like, look, if my people want to help out, I'm not going to stop them. They need food, they're going to have food. For supplies, I want all the gas. I want, you know, them to be most of the labor. And when Rick tries to kind of implore her, you know, to be a little bit more lenient, she's sort of like, why? They lost the war, you know?
Well, they got to live.
They basically, it's like, we let them live. Like, that's already, you know, generous enough. And I was like, damn,
exactly.
Maggie. You know, like, Maggie wasn't necessarily my favorite character, but she kind of did comment by the end.
But you know what? That's the thing. That's what
she sold me. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I in my heart of hearts, I would like to be a Rick, but I know that I would be a Maggie. Like, I would like to be Rick and be that benevolent, like, socialist person that's going to be like, we need to, like,
utopianist kind of,
care for everyone. And meanwhile, Maggie's like, I got enough problems over here. I can't solve their problems.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
And I was like, damn, you know what? Oh, God.
But it's like this archetype, though, right? You have these two people that are coming from completely different angles. You have the Rick part, which is kind of him really, really trying to live up to Carl and his vision, which I forgot. And then Greg Nicotero, I think it was him that said this, that he kind of reminded us that, oh, Rick's coming from that position of, like, it's the new world. This is the world that Carl wanted me to build. And, you know, meanwhile, it's like, Rick, it's like you're already here, but you're not here. You're not here, but not here. You know, you're like already there, and you're like post Carl, and meanwhile we're still in the pre-Carl stages. You need to work, son.
Right.
And part of that work is going to involve doing the hard work. Meanwhile, Maggie, what's interesting about her is that you kind of saw this coming even before that scene at the end of season 8. You did kind of see hints of that little authoritarianism, like that little, like, take charge. I got to take care of my people, you know, and this is something we mentioned on the ramp up, is that we can tell that Hilltop has the goods. Hilltop has the nuts. It's kind of like a poker term. When you have like the most chips, you get to make these ballsy decisions that you know are going to run people off the table. You're going to make them go all in. And she does that with Rick, like you're saying. You know, she has the nuts so she can be able to dictate the terms. What's interesting, though, is, and I think we might as well go into this because it just flows really well, is that when you see the sneak peek, so after the execution, summary execution of Gregory, then you start to understand that in the sneak peek, Michonne tries to talk to Maggie, and Maggie insists on getting her way rather than cooperating. And what I feel is going on here is that, and that's also why I brought up that question about Gregory, like, do you think maybe it would have been, like, in hindsight, that having Gregory be in charge but Maggie keeping him in check, that sort of thing, maybe that would have been a better situation, because Gregory can maneuver situations where maybe he can be a pushover today, but tomorrow he won't be, or, you know, he'll be able to maneuver things so that everybody can more or less cooperate, even though the Hilltop might at the end have the better position. You know, they'll at least look good. You know, Gregory knows how to make himself and probably Hilltop by extension look good. But more importantly, what I feel is going on is that you will start to see like Maggie turn into a better Gregory in a way. Like she'll make these moves, these strategic calculating moves, and it's kind of like a type of Gregory that's more effective but more ruthless. So like she turns into the thing she hates.
Yeah.
And you could start to sort of see that, and I think people around her are starting to see, like Michonne gives her this like a double take. It's like, oh, all right, it's gonna be like that now. So right?
Yeah.
I'm a little worried. Like you're like, I mean, I get it, because if you have the skill and you have the nuts, use it, right?
Yeah.
But then what happens, right? So ooh, nervous, but excited.
Listen, it's exciting to me. Look, it's a rough political climate out there right now. So,
Yeah.
like, if I can live vicariously through Maggie.
This is, by the way, this is like going through the looking glass. Like, okay, be careful what you. This whole episode is be careful what you wish for. The whole episode, this whole world is like, Rick, be careful what you wish. Daryl says as much, but you made it happen, Rick.
Yeah.
It's like, well, all right.
Here you got it. Here you go.
Wait, it's like, what if season 9 was just a dream sequence?
Oh, stop! Please don't. And I can't have any like it was all a dream. Like, no, we're not going there. You better not.
No, we're not. Carl's still dead.
Yeah.
I can't go through that epic drama again.
Yeah, no, like, oh my God, is he dying already? Jeez.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a executive decision. The whole wagon scene, we can more or less skip that.
Yeah, because that was just more like an action sequence, which was fine. It was tense.
It's like you had to be there sequence. Like you had to be there watching it.
You had to be there. Basically, it's tension. Ezekiel had a close call.
Carol kisses Ezekiel right away, not even thinking.
Exactly.
And so it's all for that, for establishing the fact that Carol and Ezekiel are in love. Really, they are. Yes. Let's face it, they are.
They are. He even goes as much as to propose to her
on the horsey outside.
Yeah, which she said it's not happening on a horse.
By the way,
yes.
Do you get the impression that he's asked her to marry her a bunch of times already?
Yes.
Kind of, sort of.
I do.
It's like, oh, he did it again. Like, but here's the thing: when Carol, I know we're jumping around. Fine, whatever. But when Carol has that scene alone with Daryl, the only reason why it may not have seemed that way, like that he proposed again, is only because Daryl mentioned something that's pretty interesting, and it's that they're never together anymore. Like Daryl's either full time at Sanctuary, and Carol is with the Kingdom, and they don't really get together. And which something he says to Rick is that, we're not, are we together? Are we on the same team? Like there is no us. That's what he says exactly. And so it's emphasized when he talks to Carol. And so when Carol brings it up, it's kind of like he's hearing it for the first time. It's like they didn't have a moment to really catch up. And he's kind of shocked by it. It's like, oh, it's been that long kind of thing. It's been that long that we haven't talked.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good way of kind of telling everybody. And they bring it on, I think in the sneak peek, he kind of mentions this as well. No. He mentions it when he speaks with Rick later on in the episode. Is like, this guy's here, this guy's there. And Rick even says, oh, yeah, I'm sending Rosita down to Oceanside with Eugene and this, that. And, if you're not be in the Sanctuary, I need you back home. I need you home, Daryl.
Yeah.
So all this to say that even though there's this good unity thing going on with everybody. They're all like one team, at least this core group of people. At the same time, they're kind of not together. Like they don't really have a chance to really be together. Not really. Maybe in situations like this, like with the DC Museum, but like they're kind of far apart otherwise. They're not really that group anymore, like Daryl's lamenting. They have to save, they have to build a new world, and they can't really be around each other, and they miss each other. So, Gregory. We don't have to muse about the DC thing.
Well, then we have the sequence on the walk to back to Alexandria. They encounter the bridge out. We see
Ken died. That's a big scene.
This is a scene, yeah. And I was really, well, this is one thing I'll mention. I did like the fight sequence with some of the walkers that started coming, like Daryl and his cool new melee weapons. So.
Oh, yeah, like him scouting ahead with the pole.
But also he had these like knives that he like twirled around his hand.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Like I'll slice his tendon here and then I'll get him in the head.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
such a easy to police.
But you're right. The bridge out thing kind of came first. Well, I think what I wanted to what's interesting that they established before all that, by the way, is that as they're walking back from the museum, just before the proposal, Ezekiel, like Marco, Ken, and Alden, they're basically talking about normal life, like shoeing horses and blah blah blah, and talking about Ken's dad, Earl,
the blacksmith,
right? Earl the blacksmith, and shoeing horses. And then, like when I was listening to this, I mentioned this before. It's like they're talking about normal life. They're not really talking about survival. Like they're shooting the shit, and it's kind of like further reinforcing the fact that they moved beyond survival. It's no longer about survival as much anymore. And then immediately afterwards, obviously you have the scene with the danger and Ken dying. But it's just a good juxtaposition. We just need to know that walkers are still dangerous. You're still surviving.
Yeah,
get out of it.
Yeah. That threat is still there.
Yeah, but okay. And then Rosita reports the bridge being out, and then and why did the bridge go out? Do you remember writing this down? Because it sounds like you really went crazy.
My understanding with the bridge being out, it was already kind of falling apart, and I thought that it was because of a horde.
Yes, two herds merging together. Now let me ask you another question. I'm going to ask you another question.
Okay.
Do you know why the bridges were crumbling?
Why the bridges were crumbling? Why?
They mentioned this really slyly.
What was it?
The big storm.
So this is how it relates to fear.
And you realize where we are now and why they needed to do an 18-month time jump?
18 months. Wait a second. Why did they have to do an 18-month? Why? No.
They needed to catch up. The two timelines are in sync.
Wait. Hold on.
Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead are now in sync. They just had their storm also. The same hurricane created a huge storm also.
Okay.
So, and they mentioned this also on the side somewhere else. They're saying how not only is the if it wasn't bad already that the sanctuary was already in trouble, the storm made it worse. And so the storm that we're talking about is the same storm that happened in Fear the Walking Dead. So the two timelines are in sync. Check it. We're moving straight forward from where we are in Fear. Isn't that interesting?
Just as long as they don't bring any of that fear element into Walking Dead.
They're setting the stage. For people who are paying attention, it's kind of okay, all right, I see what you're doing there. But I like that they have these little tie-ins, the little crossover ideas, okay, this world really does exist within the other world. And I think they're hoping people catch on, but I think that's interesting. I think there are people that listen to the show who love Fear, and it's kind of the idea that these worlds still matter to each other. The little hints that they're going to probably matter even more. That I think that's kind of cool. But furthermore, it has real world effects on what happens on The Walking Dead, and that's the sanctuaries no longer sustainable, and the bridges the bridges are crumbling. They're all going out because of this storm. And then the two herds merging together on this bridge not only takes out the bridge, but it takes out what Rosita said, and I didn't understand that in the first listen, was the walkie repeater. So they have these little antennas that boost and relay the signal. So so now part of their communication is out. And I started thinking about something because spooky music started playing in the background, and I was thinking to myself, oh, should I be paying attention right now? Oh, does this may have something to do with a certain force that may be doing this intentionally, that may be trying to isolate them?
Maybe.
What do you think? Is it too early to tell?
It might be too early to tell.
But should we be marking that one down?
Perhaps. It perhaps could be.
I mean, you can't tease us and then suddenly we'll run away.
I know.
Does that kind of make you a little nervous, though?
No, I mean, it's possible. In my mind, I thought we were going to do another time jump to get to
really?
the Whispers. Yeah, in my mind, I thought that we might have a couple of time jumps. The initial time jump now, which I assume it to be 1.5 to maybe 2 years based on baby Herschel and Judith's appearance. I kind of estimated, okay, it's been 1.5 years.
And Gracie.
But in my mind, I kind of thought, okay, Rick's going to be eliminated from the show by this mid-season finale, let's say. And my thought
not even though, it looks like.
Yeah, before that. So basically, my thought is that maybe after his departure from the show, we might do a little jump.
Maybe.
I don't know. That was just in my mind, I thought. Just because I know that a lot of the taping for the newer characters and Alpha and Beta. The guy who plays Beta, he's from Sons of Anarchy, right?
I believe so.
I
Yeah.
don't know. He wasn't the main character, was he?
No, I don't think so. That was Ron Perlman, I believe. Well, he was one of the main characters, at least. Is it Ron Perlman? Yeah. The dude that played, was in Blade 2, I think, or 3. Can't remember. And then he was also Hellboy.
Well, I guess all those guys would be.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, like, yeah, because he was a big dude, and that works for, like, Beta. But yeah, like, because it seems like the filming for them is happening later on, I kind of thought, like, well, maybe we'll do another little time jump. Like,
Right. You don't think the principal filming is done for them? Yeah, maybe you're right.
I think that there's...
But still, like, don't you think that they might still be some hints of them?
Yeah.
Like,
no,
not even, like, overt.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there will be subtle little hints, especially since we know for a fact that we are going to meet them this season.
Like, before the mid-season break. Yeah, they're going to tease them out, aren't they? Before they go on break.
Yeah, they're going to tease them out.
But
sure.
I think, you know what, I'll be willing to take a bet if that's even going to reveal itself. But that part of what got them to merge was maybe direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like them purposefully doing it. I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
It's only, you know what? I said maybe, and then when the spooky music started playing, I was just kind of like, not spooky, but you know what I mean? Like when moody music starts to play, when this sort of thing happens, they could have done that without music.
Yeah.
And it would have been fine. Like, we would have been like, okay, the bridge is out. That makes sense. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shit happens. They had a storm.
Yeah.
But when the music came on, I was just kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, maybe we should be paying attention. That's what music does. Maybe we should be paying attention.
Yeah.
So,
you are right.
Yeah, but maybe I'm wrong. Who cares?
I don't know. We'll soon find out.
So the two things I wanted to take away from Ken's death, right, is something he says before he dies. Like he's like saying things, and I thought it was kind of cool because maybe this might come up, and maybe this might have like some sort of significance. But like he like says out loud, like his eyes are closed, and he's saying this. He's like, "Tell my dad to have Marco take my place." So okay, that's interesting. Okay, fine. Maybe there's going to be some interesting thing between Marco and Earl. But who knows at this rate?
So he said, "Let Marco take my place."
Yeah, he says, "Tell my dad to have Marco take my place."
Then Marco might have a significant role.
Yeah.
Kind of arbitrary, but okay.
Yeah, kind of, but maybe he's more important than we're giving him credit for.
If what I'm thinking is correct, then yeah, he could have a major role, and it would make sense.
About Lydia?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Yes.
But for the here and now, something that we need to address, because so many people have been yelling about it on the internet, and we need to hash this out, you and me. I mean, I honestly think you and me are going to be on the same page, but so many people are like memeing about, Ken gets a funeral, but Carl doesn't.
Oh. But we were in the middle of a war.
Thank you.
I mean, the thing is that, like, they are now past the war. They are at the point that they can have little luxuries. Because, look, they didn't have funerals for pretty much most of the people that passed away on the show. Like, because they're in survival mode and they were either dealing with conflicts. It was enough that they would give them a bury the body and write the name on, like, the wall in Alexandria. That's about as good as it got, you know? But
right, you're lucky if you even got buried in some cases.
Sometimes, yeah, you could even get that. So,
so I think be burying you soon. Kidding. In a manner of speaking.
Yeah, no, of course. But you know what I mean? It's
So you think it's ridiculous too? Because I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, like come on. I mean,
first of all, he got a 2 episode. He got a mid-season finale and mid-season premiere where he got to die across both episodes. Come on, who gets that in the show?
Who gets that exactly?
I said an elegy because it's kind of like, okay, it went on forever. And yeah, the one thing that I said on Twitter was kind of like, well, you know, he got to go out like a man. like an old timer, like, you know, taking himself out and everything, and that's so badass in a weird way.
I know.
Ken died like
but you know how Ken died actually, like it reminded me exactly of Andrea's sister Amy, and maybe it's because I was watching that marathon and
that's cool.
Episode 1, because she got bit on the arm like he did.
Right, it kind of further reinforces that season 1 vibe. Or
yeah, and even the shot of how it was like framed
zoomed in. Yeah.
Almost the same thing.
Yeah. That's a really good call, actually, by the way.
I wouldn't have remembered that if it wasn't for the marathon.
I'm glad you watched. I didn't have time to. I wish I did, but
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I was working from home that day, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I literally caught it as season 1, episode 1.
That's awesome.
It was like shocking to me watching it. I was like, "Oh my god!"
It's surreal. And the way the grandiose shots and panning out, and then the dolly shots of Rick walking down the street, looking at the side of the road.
And quite honestly, I think it was much more gruesome back then.
Yeah, they weren't afraid. Well, they weren't afraid to go heavy. Yeah,
they weren't afraid to go heavy, and just little things like flies swarming around and just things that just set the tone for like, oh god, this is a horrible, decrepit environment.
Yeah, you know? I have to admit that was Darabont. You know, that was Frank Darabont.
It was him. Yeah.
It doesn't help that when you're and I didn't check to see if he was still getting credited. By the way.
Oh, I don't know.
Right? He's been credited from season 1 to season 8.
Wow.
And he's not even a part of the show anymore. Anyway, we talked about that. But yeah, that's really cool. And so, that's the thing, like, when people kept talking about this, this has a season 1 vibe, and like, well, I mean, yeah, in a way, I guess. But just with all the information, like, season 1 had a much slower pace. Honestly, season 1 reminds, there are certain elements in Fear the Walking Dead that remind me of season 1 of The Walking Dead. The way they would slow pace something and, emphasize for feeling, that sort of thing, like to just show where we are emotionally. Sometimes I can compare it, but this episode was just too chocked with info and action and it's just so compressed, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I just don't feel like the pacing is the same as the first season 1. I think maybe the vibe where, maybe people were trying to survive or... but when you mentioned the shot, okay, maybe that is part of it. Maybe it's the way things are framed. Maybe the way things are kind of callbacks. The Rick on the horse, people on horses, going back into the city, that sort of thing, and with more knowledge now. It's kind of like... It's kind of like a video game where you're trying to beat a boss, and then you you're at one point in your life, you're like, oh, you had to put the game down because it was so frustrating you couldn't beat it. But now, 8 seasons later, they're trying to defeat that boss, and they can defeat that boss easily. They have so much more accumulated knowledge and a huge community of people, so they easily beat the boss. It's kind of like season 1 if they had unity and people and cooperation, not like the Vatos trying to take them down or claimers or the governor and all that stuff. So it's an interesting idea, but yeah, it's revisiting season 1 with time, revisiting that whole scene again, basically. So
yeah, but we do end up noticing that Maggie takes Ken's death very hard, and we realize kind of why.
And everybody does too, but Maggie especially.
Yeah, because of the fact that specifically he lives, he's a Hilltop member, and she has to be the one as their leader to sit down with the parents and basically tell them what happened to their son.
Yeah,
which is obviously a terrible conversation to have.
And she's a genuine person, which makes being the leader really difficult,
Yeah.
Because she knows why she brought him. She knows why he was sent out there, for the horses and stuff like that. But she also knows that it was in purpose of trying to mostly get things for the sanctuary,
And Tammy, the mother, mentions it. I mean, I wrote down...
Brett Butler, by the way.
Yes, Brett Butler. I was like, oh, look at Brett Butler.
Yeah.
But, she says...
Great performance.
Great performance by her. She said, my son's dead, your son has no father, and the saviors eat our food. I mean, that was just like, oh.
Punch in the stomach. It's like, I don't hit girls, but I'll still hit them with words.
But that was, I mean, yeah, that's it, hitting them with words. I was like, oh man, that is tough because it's all true.
Yeah, and not only that, in service of the saviors, but also people haven't forgotten that the saviors tried to kill them. The saviors dipped the blood axes and arrows and whatnot and thinned their numbers.
Yeah.
After everything, right? It's like insult to injury.
Yeah, of course.
It would be one thing if a community was draining the other, and that alone is pretty bad. But the community in question is that one, Oof.
Yeah, no, that was tough.
Right. And I think that's, you could tell that there were looming resentments and stuff like that already, but this kind of brought it right to the forefront. And that was the purpose of this scene, is kind of to really hit it home, drive it home. These are grieving parents, they ain't going to hold back. They're going to say what everybody's been thinking the entire time. So again, that's story writing right there. But it also brings to mind, by the way, when they eventually, I guess, by the way, it also establishes that Gregory's been whispering, by the way.
Right.
A little bit. It alerts Maggie to that. A little bit. And if not for that, she probably wouldn't wouldn't have figured it out as quickly, too. But it also, when you go into the Ken's funeral sequence, again, like with Alden singing, there's a casket. I think there's a casket, right? Somewhat of a gilded kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've been establishing, like, the way with Marco and Ken and all them talking and certain things, certain concepts, like worrying about politics and charters and stuff like that. But all these little elements about, like this is the difference between just surviving and, like, a relative peace. And then you have all these elements where, like, the two things are kind of butting against each other. Like, you still have this thing here that you need to worry about, and now they have funerals. And that's why I brought the Carl drama, like the whole him getting, like, not getting a burial. It's like, well, you know, because we were fighting, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's like the huge difference between then and now. What people can get now, people can have now, versus what, you know, they couldn't have before. They couldn't afford to think about. They couldn't, you know what I mean? You just have to bury the body, and that's it. And that's the nicest thing you can do. I don't know. I just thought all that is just kind of, it's just crazy.
It's crazy.
But what did you think of Alden singing?
I was trying to figure out what song that was, because I wasn't sure if it was like, because, you know, like with certain cultures, like for instance, like when John McCain died, I think they sang Oh Danny Boy, and I was trying to think to myself, is that like a similar song? Like I was trying to kind of, I don't know, I was trying to figure out what the song was and if there was any significance behind the song.
Yeah, I should have actually written down the lyrics, because I mean, I know there's Oh Danny Boy, but there's also like what is that song? Good night with you all, and all I want for want away in memory now I can't recall. Anyway, so the parting glass.
The Dave concert.
Yeah. So sing to me your parting glass. Good night and love be with you all. Anyway, so that's the song I thought he was going to sing.
That sounds very familiar.
So yeah. I think he was singing something that may have been more Scottish.
Yes, yeah.
Because the song I just sung was more Irish.
A lot of them usually are Irish. And so that's what I was trying to think to myself. I was like, is this another sort of like Irish kind of tune? But I couldn't place it.
Yeah. I like the thing that, and I what did you think of the singing itself? It's like, I thought it came out of nowhere, and I think it kind of shows how, by the way, he's a savior, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I kind of forgot about that, and it's kind of important.
Yeah, he was a savior.
But how everybody has accepted him enough and not made him kind of like a pariah, or at least just yet, we don't know. But enough to be able to sing at this guy's funeral. Wow, how did I not think of that and write it down? But then also, like, and like the thing he says at the end is just so fucking sweet. Heaven's a better place for having you.
Yeah.
So what did you think about Gregory moving about the funeral the way he was able
like
to?
Like a snake.
Kind of like just like on the perimeter.
Like
people.
A serpent.
Yeah.
Slimy. He was quite svelte though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just makes you kind of, you know, and you know, he gives the eulogy, and it's like, and he doesn't, it's not overt at all, but what he says about Ken is that normal people make Hilltop run, right? Just, it's a subtle jab at, like, we're not warriors, we're not, like, you know, ruffians, we're builders, we're farmers, you know, that kind of thing. We're you know, horseshoe makers, or like, horseshoers, I think that's what he was, right? He shoes the horses. So it's kind of like saying he didn't have to die, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Like other people wouldn't have detected that, but we know, and maybe Maggie knows. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ugh, shiver.
I think she's always on alert with him.
Well, and by the way, like if you had any doubt that they were going to make that connection with Gregory and Jesus, them being brothers, that's kind of out the. I think it's really out the way. They've always kind of kept it a little bit ambiguous, and moments where like, okay, maybe they have a relationship as brothers, maybe. But you know, you got a glimpse of maybe that they would kind of maintain that when Jesus kind of compliments him on the eulogy, but then later on it's just kind of like full agreement, like with Maggie, and no complaining. It's just very, I thought that maybe they would actually flesh it out in some way. It kind of like finally, maybe, I don't know. I was kind of hoping for it a little bit, but yeah, and now we're really at the sanctuary.
Yes, we are officially at the sanctuary. Eugene is there.
Yep, trying to fill in Rick.
Daryl refuses to speak to the people in terms of...
like the big speeches like Laura wants him to make.
Yeah, no. I think Laura has the hots for Daryl.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
I'm like in the camp where they have a thing. I think they have a thing, and...
I hope hope they do.
That's why she can talk to him the way she does, right?
I hope they do, because I just feel bad that Daryl's like asexual.
I kind of want him to be caught between him and Cindy. Like her and Cindy. Laura and Cindy.
I think Cindy's a lesbian, and Cindy's going to be with Tara.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think so.
Huh. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. I mean, don't pin me in a corner, but like, I hadn't really seen it. I'm like, oh, well, I guess she needs something from somewhere, and that is pretty badass way to get it.
I just feel bad for like Daryl, because I'm just like, man, Daryl can't get anybody.
But Laura seems appropriate.
No, Laura seems appropriate. That's why I hope so, because it's like the man can't get anything. I mean, luckily he's getting lines now.
Maybe he's getting some, at least.
He's getting some.
I don't know.
Hopefully the character of Daryl is getting some.
Yes, that's what I mean. Because Nauman Reedus is married. Diane Kroger.
Is he married? I thought they were just together.
I think they're married. No, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Don't they have a kid? I don't know.
They're expecting a child.
Yes, that's right.
Baby already.
Who knows? Yeah. Oh yeah, and like how Daryl mentions, you want me to make a speech like him, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Okay, so in spite of like Daryl talking about like communities and how we were better when we were this core group,
right,
and all that stuff, right? But don't you think that Daryl should have said something like that? Do you think that maybe some of these problems can be avoided if Daryl just kind of leaned in just a little, to be like this extension for unity or something? Part of me thinks like he should have said something.
I don't know how much it would have helped though. I don't know how much of a difference it would make.
I think just for at least morale.
Hungry people.
Yeah. I was just thinking in terms of morale. Like, I don't really know the answer, but like I think it's just worth asking, because like nobody really appreciates when somebody's kind of like got one
Debbie Downer.
Well, like one toe in, one toe out, that kind of thing. Like juxtapose. I can't even say the word. I can't say it. Can you say it?
Juxtaposition?
Juxtapose. Sorry, I was thinking too bigly. Hilltop and the Sanctuary, and how like Hilltop is just running smoothly. They've got things moving, and like I get that the Sanctuary, they've got their struggles. They have little to do when it comes to how much fuel they can make. So there are going to be people around there doing nothing for the most part. But like also just in terms of leadership, it's like I don't think they really have like leadership and directions. Nobody's really telling them what to. Eugene can only tell so many people to do so many things, and so I just don't think they have anybody that's really leading them.
Yeah.
Daryl's like being a nanny almost.
Yeah.
I can see why he wants to leave. It's like, these people bring me down.
Well, he says that like I'm not useful inside, I'm useful out there, because he's a feral cat. Like, that's Daryl.
Yeah. By the way, he said the walls. He used the word specifically, like, I'm not good behind these walls.
Yeah, he's not good behind any walls. It was the same thing at Alexandria itself. That's why he used to go on runs with Aaron, because like
that's where he lived.
Yeah, he lives out in the wild.
Yeah, bringing people in and all that stuff. Like, I mean, like, he still has the same mindset. He's just more of a doer.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. When he used the words "the walls," it just, and I know this is the observation, by the way, between this and Fear the Walking Dead. Nick and like Madison were saying how being inside the walls made them feel like better again, like they didn't have to scrap to survive and all that stuff and blah blah blah. But then just hearing Daryl be like, I'm no good inside the walls, I need to be out there. It made me think about like the journey that these two people made. Like, Daryl's not a house cat, he's like an outdoor cat. He's survived. I mean, the season 1 vibe that you were mentioning before, like Daryl seemed to excel in this new world because it's all the skills and all the things he and his brother used to do out there and blah blah, and brag on each other. That's where he lived. He did not live indoors.
No.
And so this is something he's used to, except for some of the other outside aggression and all that stuff and walkers.
Right.
But I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting observation. How some people are, how some people can be this or that, and that makes them a better person. So I don't know. It's interesting. Mix of two worlds.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's a lot of things down. Boom. Goodbye. So yeah, the Savior Save Us sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are so needed.
With very little information, they've already established the fact that there is a schism within the Saviors. You have people clapping for Rick. Bless you, Rick Grimes. That sort of thing. But then
Daryl, pink guy.
Yeah. Exactly. Justin. And also there's already this tension between. See, and that's the thing. If you take out Daryl from the equation, what happens to Justin now? Like, obviously, Carol's taking over for him. So what happens? And you know what? Do you think Carol is going to be a more effective leader than Daryl? Right?
Yeah.
She's pretty tricky. She's pretty manipulative and crafty. I think she can handle more than Daryl.
I think so. I think Daryl lets his emotions get the best of him.
Yeah, he takes things too personally. I mean, he'll shut that shit down. But Carol can. I think Carol can do it in a way that most people can't do. She'll get people to do things and make them think that it was their idea. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, that thing that you wanted. Yeah, I wanted it. Yeah, it's my idea. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'll do it right now. So like the Susie Housemaker thing that she was pulling on the Alexandrians, that sort of thing. Right. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But oh yeah. And so the main thing with Rick and Daryl is the idea that, and they mentioned this on Talking Dead, and had they not mentioned that, I probably wouldn't have paid too much attention to it. But this idea that that Daryl is telling Rick there's a schism. This place is failing. It's gonna fail. Like there's no point in me being here. Right. And Rick not listening. Yeah. He just can't hear it. Like, oh, we're all one team. Blah blah blah. This is the world that we fought for. This is Carl's vision. Like he's already in the new world. Meanwhile, it's not there yet. No. It just shows that how little Rick is gonna see things fall apart until they're falling apart. Yeah. God, I mean, and I feel like that's the direction they're gonna go with how he goes out in whatever way he does go out. Yeah. Like it's like he's not going to realize it until it's too late. Damn. Yeah. But taking out Rick might also mean that, it could be like a unifying factor. Like Rick, say what you will about Rick, Saviors, but he freed you from that system that you were kind of tied to. You were tied to like an authoritarian. So, his death could like affect them. It could be one of those things that gets them to, unite and start to cooperate. Yeah. Fuel. There is no us. Oh yeah, and we learned that the kingdom is still kind of rebuilding. Yeah, like they haven't recovered in a year and a half since they lost all their fighters. No. Alvaro and all them. Yeah. So it's just like another thing that, and that's interesting because like now that Carol is trying to, like, as Jerry calls her the boss, by the way, as she's leaving, right. I'm starting to realize, okay, wait, with all the fighters being gone and Carol now going, like, what does that do to morale? Like, what do they do? What's going on with them? Like that they can spare Carol that way. I wonder, because like I wonder how they really are. They were also farmers. They were also had some sort of self-sustaining farm and animals and stuff like that. So wouldn't they need Carol? I mean, doesn't Ezekiel need Carol? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So yes, and so that's the thing. Let me just undo that for a second because there's a good transition here because Rick is just like rattling off like how their core group is stretching and just rattling off all the problems, and Hilltop sends food but no people, and the kingdom is still feeling tremendous loss, and Rick says to Daryl, I need help back home if that's the case, because if I have to send out like Rosita and Eugene to Oceanside and all that stuff, I need you back home. Like I need your help. And like Daryl basically says, in his own way, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You asked for this. Yep. And by the way, right after that he says that, kind of, it quickly cuts over to Gregory. Like, like a man with no crown is unencumbered, that kind of thing. Like, when Gregory had the hat on, he had to make like kind of his hands on his knees kinds of decisions just to get things moving. He had to do things he probably didn't want to do, as opposed to kind of like Rick. And so, but like now that Gregory doesn't have the crown anymore, he can scheme and plot and do anything that he wants to right now. Yeah. So so it cuts to that and the whole scene with basically him getting Tammy drunk to get her out of the way, and Earl being a man of sobriety, by the way, he made Earl drink so that he can take out Maggie. Yeah. Earl the blacksmith, the quiet, man of few words, because he's sober and keeps everything inside. Now he drinks and he's like letting him know all his feelings and stuff like that about Ken. And then like Gregory's going hard. Like Maggie's above the law. The election was a scam. Like, and Earl is still kind of, he's still trying to stay behind the fence. He's like, she's our leader. It's like he's still drinking, but she's our leader. But like Gregory, and that's the thing, like that's what got my wheel spinning about Gregory. Like he does have the juice. Like he's framing the argument around, this idea that, look, I talked to this guy the other day. Like none of the people here really like what she's doing. Like you're sending people off, our people off, and getting everybody and getting Ken killed, getting your son killed. killed, you know, and it's kind of like, woo, that's next level shit. Like the fact that you're going this hard. Yeah, like I literally wrote, Gregory uses his juice to get Earl to whack Maggie. So yeah, I just this craziness that, and again, like, it's crazy that this man lived this long. Yeah, so there's this whole, the Carol and Daryl sequence, which is also kind of nice. The best that I got out of that sequence is that, like, Daryl really just misses the core group. They just are just constantly away from each other, and it's not what this is about, and all that stuff. But one thing that Carol says to Daryl at the end, when she tells him that he's going to be taking care of things at the sanctuary, is that Daryl asks specifically, do you want me to stick around? And she specifically says no.
Yes.
So, I mean, I learned throughout this entire speaking session is that, like, and the internet is, like, still all about Carol and Daryl, like, shipping them. But, like, how could you not see that they're not doing that anymore after that scene?
I know.
Like, solidly.
It's not happening. It's a relationship that's beyond that.
Yeah, it's precious. It's kind of like, why does it have to be about that?
Right,
you know?
sexual, yeah.
Yeah. She calls him Pookie. I mean, like, you know, my wife doesn't call me Pookie.
I wrote that down, yeah.
I didn't get that the first time around. I was like, oh.
Because she used to call him that.
Pookie's approval?
Pookie's approval. I love that.
But yeah, I thought the refusal was kind of interesting. Like, why do you think that she doesn't want Daryl around? Do you think it's because she wants him to work with Rick? Or is it that she, what is it, actually?
She overheard the conversation, so I don't
she did?
Yeah, she was underneath the stairs when he and Rick were speaking.
Did they flip to her?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they showed her underneath the stairs. She heard the whole thing.
Oh, I must not have been paying enough attention. Wow, you're good.
I told you, I was all in it.
I fell asleep at some point. No, but I rewatched it. That's interesting. So why? So then what does that mean?
I think that she just basically knows that this is not a good place for him.
Yeah, like it just, and maybe she's doing it for his best interest. Like why would you stay here?
That was part of it. I think that it's partially because she knows that this isn't the best environment for him to be in. She can do it. And I think also it gives her some distance from Ezekiel too. She just needs some space.
Yeah, you think space is what she needs from Ezekiel?
I think that she loves him, but she doesn't want to cop to it because, like, you know,
like she doesn't want to be with him just to lose him, basically. Exactly. Maybe it's too much of a scare.
I lose people and I lose myself. You know, thing.
Do you think that's what's going on a little?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. She's going on a sort of Morgan journey.
Yeah.
Because she was like that. By the way, both of them were like that at the end of that episode where they try to find Henry. And she snaps out of it.
Yes.
But that's interesting.
Which I think that she is better, but I think there's still that fear.
Did somebody say fear?
Let's not say we did.
No, but you're right. Like, Morgan had to go through this. Well, Morgan was a special case too, but yeah, maybe she does have to go on a little journey where, I mean, she really has to kind of prioritize herself. It's not about. I mean, she's always, like, between burning the prisoners, she's always put the health and safety of the group in a sort of orthodox way. You know what I mean? Like, and what I mean by orthodox, it's kind of like, I always regard orthodox as, like, no room for nuance or compromise. There's, like, okay, there are people in this prison that are sick. Let's just burn them all, and we'll keep the rest of us safe. But she's always been about the integrity of the group, but to an extreme. And so maybe this is integrity of her heart to the extreme. Like, if this is going to make me feel horrible, you know, however that falls, you know, whatever it is, then I'm going to go away from that horrible, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's a good take. It's a really good take. Rick and Michonne talk about they don't want Negan, they want food. They talk about whether that's interesting how they talk about whether they still talk about whether they should have let Negan live. But I think that's just a way for them to reaffirm that they should have. Like, that's the way it should be. And yet they still let, like, Maggie summary execute. I mean, Michonne kind of she shows her cards. Like, she, you know, I mean, it's not just the kids, I don't think. I think the kids just further prove the point that, like, what we're doing here, this is, we need to have, like, a trial. And that's the thing, like, that's all I was thinking was, like, when she had that reaction, I'm like, wait, no, she's right. Like, there should be a trial. There should be, like, you know, a declaration of what happened, an account of what happened, why it happened, and then, like, a ruling, like a jury or, like, a judge or, like, the thing that they all decide, you know, instead of just one person deciding summarily.
Yeah.
So, I think, and also she tries to get him to listen to Daryl too. You know, you should trust Daryl. You should listen to him. You know, there's probably a reason behind. You know, he knows things that you're not listening to. And I'm so glad we talked about Rick and Maggie. By the way, we don't have to go over that.
Yeah. And then I think we get to our scene.
Which one?
Maggie attack assault.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't know what else there is to say about that though. Like there is a lot of really good.
I thought it was very haunting for me. But for me, anything involving children, I find horrific. Like to see the stroller tipped over and the baby wailing in the background the whole time as this assault is like going on. Like that was just very, for me at least. And maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a mom, like I don't know.
That's like a content warning right there.
That is like
babies will be tipped over.
And that, to be perfectly honest, if it were, I think it's one of those sorts of like, what is it, fight or flight adrenaline situations. Like if someone is potentially threatening your child, like that would fill me with even more fight in me than, you know, if it's just like, okay, this person's attacking me. Yeah, I'm going to fight, but you know, I'm going to fight with every inch of my life now. Yeah, every ounce.
It's like the incredible like Hulk effect. There's just so much pumped into you.
Exactly. And I think like that was, you know, that's what struck me. And it was so like the way it happened, like the way it was shot too. It's like all of a sudden this figure in a cloak was like, whoa. And then, you know, everything just kind of happens. And, you know, eventually Jesus and Alden, I think are the ones that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it was just Alden. I don't remember seeing Jesus. Did you?
I thought it was two people.
Right? Well, I know that Enid tried to get in.
Yeah. But I think eventually then two people came and were able to subdue him, and then she was the one who pulled the cloak off him to see like who it was.
Yeah, and it's a drunk Earl.
Right, which Maggie goes promptly to Gregory because she knows full well that like he basically orchestrated this, and she goes off. You know, she's like, you can't even murder somebody, right? You know, you're too chicken shit to do it yourself.
Yeah, all the verbal blows are awesome. It just goes there.
Awesome.
Because like there's a point at which you think Gregory's just gonna be like, oh Margaret, what's up? You know, and then like you're like, oh, he's gonna do his shame shtick.
In the beginning, a little bit, because he's like, oh, you have a head injury, you know, like, what are you talking about? You know, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're hurt. You know what I mean? Like, he did try a little bit and then kind of like threw that out the window and then just kind of tried to go for it himself, which she overpowers him, of course. And, you know.
Right, by the way, just before the whole thing, when they were trying to have that nice conversation, by the way, he says, Maggie says outright, she's like, it's hard not knowing where your place is, you know, to Gregory, you know. And by the way, it's like you could say that about her too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she's this leader, but she's doing things that she doesn't want to do because Rick is telling her to do them. And like she kind of is well aware that like she feels like I think Rick is leading Hilltop off a cliff. And so like her saying that's very prescient. It's like she's trying to identify with him. Like she's trying to assume best intentions. And then like it's like this War of the Roses flip, like where finally Gregory just drops the facade.
Right.
By the way, he does this once before. By the way, he does that with Simon. He just decides, you know what, I've got the juice, and you know, who are you, and blah blah blah, and then he really sticks up for himself, and it actually works. And I think he maybe expected it to happen again, you know, or like it to work, or it to carry him through. But it's like, wow,
he tried.
Yeah. That blow, that Gregory's blow, right in return of that. Like, you can't even go to Alexandria because you know who is still there.
Who's you know who?
I'll give you one guess. 5 letters.
Oh, Negan.
Yeah.
He
can't do it. She can't do it. And
can't bring herself to
and maybe it's not that. Maybe he's just like, oh, you know, you're not going because of this. Meanwhile, she's like,
no, but I think you're spot on. I think you're actually perfectly spot on, because I didn't grasp it right away. Good on you. Yeah. Because I was like, and even like later on when she's talking to Rick and he's like, oh, Judith asked for Aunt Maggie and whatever, and she was like, Rick, you know, I can't do that. I can't go to Alexandria. And like, I thought to myself, I was like, okay, that's a little abrupt. Like, why?
But do you think it's because of Negan, though, really?
Yes, I actually do.
Really? I thought it was more like because like Hilltop just needs to keep running.
I think it's because of Negan. I think that in combination with Gregory's comments is because like that is the single point. I mean, listen, this is what I was telling you about the point of contention. Like when you're talking about their governing styles, Negan is living in Alexandria like life in prison, and meanwhile Maggie's like, no, unacceptable. simple. Like, people need to be executed, you know?
Like, people need to know. An example needs to be made. And I think that's what Rick was trying to tell her. An example has been made that we've taken this guy out and we're showing everybody that we can be civilized. Maggie's just, like, not with it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And by the way, side comment.
Oh, yes, please. I've been waiting.
I do like it when Carol departs from Ezekiel, like, in terms of her telling him that she's going to, like, take Daryl's post at the sanctuary. I just love it because he turns and goes like, Jerry, my steeds. I'm like, yes. It's like, yeah, he is corny the way that Carol said. Like,
yeah, exactly.
He's corny, but you know what? It's funny.
But also, like, he's probably like the realist with her.
Yes, he is the realist with her.
You know, and he's probably real with everybody else at this point. But I don't think he's doing the king act as much. But I think every now and again he has to throw it in.
I like when he does, though. That's the thing. It's like, I love when he does throw it in. It's like, my steeds. I'm like, yes.
Some people like my steeds.
It makes me want to, like, start talking in the old English randomly.
Hey, look, some people like heapster speak. Some people like my steeds. Some people like Jimbo's beerbos.
I'll take you old English and
I think we all would. But only if Kari Payton does it, because honestly, it's so great.
It's so great.
Yeah, lean in, buddy, lean in. But the best part of that is, like, it ups the ante because yes, my steeds, and then Jerry gets them, and he's all cool with it. But at the end of the day, he goes, he's see you later, boss. Like, yeah, like he says it to Carol because Carol is the boss.
Yeah,
you know, like he knows. He just knows.
He knows.
Jerry's real, yo. So back to the fight scene though. Like, Gregory, do you think that alcohol was the motivator behind that?
No, he lives his life drunk. Like, I mean,
that's
Gregory lives his life mostly under the influence of scotch.
Yeah, just enough, right? Like, not too
to get
much.
Him by. Yeah, just enough to get him functionally by, you know? No, I think it was fully intentional. This was murder in the first, and conspiracy to commit murder, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that he dropped the veil with her. I mean, like, he's just, it's what he does, I guess, he did it with Simon, and he thinks that he can do that with Maggie. Like, if he barks loud enough, she'll keep him around or something. But it kind of works, though, because Maggie, throughout, she's really not falling apart at his jabs. And she even kind of, like, takes the high road. Yeah. Like, she still tries to appeal to his better sense. He's like saying, you've been giving so many chances. And to that, he kind of says, what does he say? He says something and then, oh, but I'm still here. And then he tries to stab Maggie. Like, he just, and, like, I guess it's, like, it's open to interpretation, but, like, she really, I think it's really, it's like these flawed characters, right? Like, these kind of Shakespearean kind of fall from grace characters, right? Because you look at Julius Caesar, right, in Shakespeare, and he really is a great guy. Like, he's really a man of the people, but all in the backdrop, people have been conscious of, like, look, we've established democracy, like, you know, there are no more emperors, right? But even, like, but you do start to see that when, you know, power corrupts, absolutely, that sort of thing, right? And Maggie, bless her heart, she really, really tries to be just, she tries to be fair, she doesn't cave to Gregory's insults, like, even when he's dropped the veil and admitted to assassinate, you know, basically getting Earl to assassinate her, like, she's still maintaining that sense of, like, justice, like, I'm not going to kill you or anything, you know, or, you know what I mean? Like you're in trouble, you're going to be held to account, just like we do when we did with Negan. And then Gregory tries to say, and she still kind of, like, holds back. She has a knife to his throat, doesn't slit it out right. But then you start to see, like, obviously with the execution, I feel like all of this, like, it's kind of like what we saw with the museum. You have everybody in unison, in unity, in lockstep, safety, coordination, etc. And you have even Maggie here, like, with this situation, she's holding it together, she's keeping it in lockstep, and the execution obviously makes sense. It's like, we need to make an example, blah blah blah, but it's like the first step. And I feel like both of these things are kind of like, you know, this is where we are, just so you can remember where we are, because later on you're going to be like, how did we get here? How did we get to this bad spot? And I feel like Maggie's going down that road of the Emperor. Like, this is what power can do. And with the people in lockstep at the museum, like, this is what ends up happening when things, politics and all that stuff gets in the way. We start losing that unity, and then we're gonna start to see divisions and stuff like that. And so these scenes, all this information, everything is so precious. Everything is so, like, gold. Like, oh, this is so important. We need to remember this because it's gonna get shitty. So, All right, so Daryl arrives at the Hilltop with Rick and Michonne, you know, baby Herschel, little stinker, that whole conversation, and then Maggie's terms, you know, putting her balls on the table, you know, and she has the nuts. We talked about that. And it's like the two philosophies, like you said, like we're obliged to help, and like, well, they got to live, so now they get to do us. They owe us.
They owe us.
And then the calling out of the promise, like you said, that I would be leading you someday. And she said, I'll admit, back then I wasn't one to follow, but that changes
Today, now.
Yeah, and we see that also in the sneak peek, like I said before with Michonne, and her like exerting her will in spite of possibly trying to cooperate. You know, so and all I could think of when she said that, both here and at the sneak peek, was what Daryl said. So there is no us, and that's like kind of like the theme. There is no us anymore. It's kind of interesting how like you bring Daryl kind of lays out what the problem of the show is ahead of time. He's like, are you not looking around you? There really is no us. Judith is painting the picture of all of them together, like as she remembers them with Carl, you know. But in Daryl, just like a kind of like the innocence and caring of a child almost, is like, but I see it, you know, like I want it, but I see it. It's not there. There is no us. Which brings us to Gregory's hanging.
Did you realize right away that it was him, or did you think it was Earl?
Oh, I knew it was Gregory.
Yeah.
Did you think it was Earl?
No, I thought it was Gregory.
Because I think Earl still has a part to play too. Like I think he has that thing to do with Marco at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And he's useful.
He's in the comic too, isn't he? Tammy and Earl.
Yes,
yeah. Okay. Because I remember I saw their names somewhere, and I thought that was important.
Yeah.
And who knows? Because like basically Earl is locked up in the next episode, and basically Maggie uses it as an excuse to say, I don't want to take him out of jail. I don't, you know. Yeah, he could make that plow for the sanctuary. But you know what? I kind of like the idea of being able to use them for whatever I want because they owe us.
Yeah.
Oof. So let's talk about that hanging scene a little bit more.
Yep.
It was just it.
Man, she was like, listen, she said, at the Hilltop, the punishment fits the crime. And I mean,
But you were in it. Like a lot of people, when they saw Gregory hang, were kind of like, finally, right? And I was too. It's kind of like, his time run out. His clock run out.
I knew it was happening. I mean, I knew it happened in the comic.
Yeah.
So
we've all seen the panels too.
We've all seen the panels. So I was like,
Xander Berkeley looks way better too.
Way better.
I'm saying that out loud.
Way better. But yeah, Gregory in the comic kind of reminds me of a slightly thinner version of. Did you ever watch the cartoon Aqua Teen Hunger Force on?
Oh yeah. Oh right. The next door neighbor, I think was his name.
Yes.
Carl? No, is it Carl?
I think it might have been Carl. I think that was his.
Yeah, you guys keep coming over. You know, like yeah.
Yes, that dude. I love the Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Felt like a taller Danny DeVito, like a stretched out Danny DeVito in my mind. From what I was seeing in the panels, like, it looks like from Matilda or something.
Oh God, I need to watch some Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Like,
that is totally like what you would watch, just like in the middle of the night, where you're like, I don't know what to do, and like you're half tired.
Yes.
And it's just like, did I really watch that last night? Or
when you're saying you, are you talking the general you, or
the general you?
Are you saying me specifically? Because
probably you specifically at this rate.
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I'm just
because it's the perfect show to think like, did I dream that, or did that happen in the show? Like, it's taking all these visions you might see before you fall asleep and just put it on the screen.
It's such a
demented.
It's such a demented, stupid.
Oh my God.
I loved every minute of it.
It's like if you improved like Ren and Stimpy, like just
the Moonanites, best thing ever.
Oh my God. So Gregory.
Back to Gregory.
But yeah, I guess so. You're right. And it does kind of look like a Carl, I guess it is. Carl.
I don't think it was Carl. I'm gonna send you an image.
I thought one of the guys is named Carl. Whatever. Who cares?
Somebody's named Carl on Aqua Teen Hunger Force because that name has come up.
Yeah, it might as well be Carl. Anyway, but yeah. But by the way, but the one thing that Gregory says is like, I'm not, you don't have to hang me because you feel ashamed, and like,
she deadpans like, I'm not ashamed. She is not ashamed.
But like of losing Ken, of following Rick, or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. That's what he's trying to sow that last seed of doubt in everybody around him. Mm-hmm. That I find that choice interesting. Like he like doubles down. He just till the end, which is kind of interesting for somebody like that. Like you think a man like. it really does change the way you look at Gregory, though. I mean, if you're paying attention, because when you think of Gregory, you think of groveling when he needs to, when he needs to be, etc. And at the end of the day, he's kind of like a weakling and you know, trying to suck up and everything like that. But when he sticks to his guns and he commits to like his trickery and sowing doubt, and like if the last thing I do is going to be sowing doubt in seeds of doubt in the people around me, and I can in some way even like feel like a sympathetic character to them and ruin Maggie, then I'm gonna do that. And that makes me think like, wow, that's commitment. Like you'd think this guy would be groveling at the end, right? It really doesn't it does change the way I think about him. Not that like I still think he's an asshole, but at the end of the day, like he's not like just like this weak piece of shit. He's like, he knows what he's doing when he's being that way, that grovelly kind of way, you know. So I don't know, but yes, and she tells everybody around them, you know, I made this decision, but it's not the beginning of something. So there's like the famous last words of Julius Caesar or something. You know, I don't want to have to go through it again. And and also like the idea of where they decide to hang him too, by the way. If you think about it, they're hanging him from the rafters of like the bones of a new home, which kind of tells you like this is the foundation of her quote unquote presidency. Like this is gonna be like it, like this mark on her presidency in a way, you know, of her election or whatever. It's just something to think about. Like this is what you're building. This what goes into the house. So I just love that illusion. It's so cool. Oh, so now we're up to sneak peeks, but we got to the one with the Earl in the prison, the Jello pudding pops. And I said like literally in capital letters, becoming Gregory question mark, and then at the end I say, oh, becoming a better Gregory.
So we saw Earl, and I missed that. They showed Earl in the prison?
They didn't, but what okay, you know what, so the sneak peek that I saw was on the AMC website, and it's an extended scene of where sorry I didn't say that because I don't know why I assumed you saw that. I don't know why. So let me explain the scene, and I have to restore. So Hilltop has surpluses to feed the sanctuary, according to Jesus, who's there with Michonne and Maggie, and they're trying to negotiate basically if you can get and you know, and meanwhile, like, you know, Michonne's trying to say this. She's like, okay, you know, I need that field because, you know, see that tractor over there? I don't have enough to plow the fields. And she goes, well, you know, as much as I hate Earl for what he tried to do to you, but I have to assume that you don't hate, you know, Hilltop / the sanctuary enough to not at least think about taking Earl out of jail for a little bit to do the plow and put him back in. And if you have the plow, Earl can make a copy of that plow, give it to the sanctuary, and they could be off your back. And that's when like you start to realize Maggie doesn't care about the plow. She cares about the power play. She's really committing to what she said to Rick. She said she won't release Earl or deal with anything less than compliance. I mean, she doesn't say that, but like she's like, it's my way. And then like at the end I say, oh, it's a better Gregory. Yeah, it's ominous, right? You're like, oh, where is this gonna go? Like, I'm excited, but I'm also kind of like, I kind of like Maggie. I don't want to see her go down this path, you know, like it's gonna only get worse. And well, then here's the smaller sneak peeks of the next episode, which is like the bridge building, and you see the saviors there, and like Justin right away pushes Henry down. You're like, oh, that's how it's gonna go down. You're pushing a kid, huh? Rick still doesn't see the divisions, you know, like we're all on the same side, and Daryl's like, are we though?
Right.
And Alden tells Rick, and this is like the best part I thought was from the sneak peek, was like Alden himself and he's having these conversations with Rick again. Remember, like at the Hilltop, Alden was trying to appeal to Rick's better nature. Yeah. And he says, you know, they work for you, but you protect them. Who does that sound like to you? Ooh, right? And then of course, the moment we've all been waiting for, a little teaser of Rick visiting Negan. Right? Yes. Are you excited? I'm so excited.
So excited. Negan's back. Yay. He's like the biggest Negan supporter ever. I'm like,
there's so many. It's it's great, but it's also kind of like, I'm a little disconcerted.
You have to kind of look at it on the bigger picture.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Kind of broad strokes.
Yeah, what's going to happen? What's the result? Yeah.
Yeah, you think about it that way.
I am. But now with Rick out of the picture, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. This really does get somebody to think, right?
Yeah.
Like what's it going to look like, right?
Hopefully Negan. Just saying.
I mean, I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan says as much. Like me and him have conversations, but it's kind of like the idea of like a better Negan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. One that resembles Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yes.
And that really awesome laugh of his, by the way. That laugh is just precious.
It's precious.
It's so so goofy.
It's
like that.
It's so funny because he seems very goofy in real life and not this sort of like threatening, menacing Lothario.
Yeah, assertive and
yeah. So it's very funny because it's like he can definitely like go from one pendulum to the other because it's like he's downright. I've heard interviews with him. He's like downright goofy, and like meanwhile on the show he's like this, has a presence,
Oh, commanding too, yeah, like
very commanding presence.
And like meanwhile, like when he's on the couch, he's more like he's just down to earth and like charming,
down to earth,
silly. And he's like several. He's like almost a couple. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Doesn't take himself very seriously.
That's the thing, and like I part of me is like thinking like, oh my god, you subtract maybe 1,000 or so brain cells, and he could play like a good stoner friend, like
Well, you know that he has a musical background in the sense that he did a couple of interviews with Howard and Howard.
Oh yeah, like punk shows and stuff, right?
Yeah,
you told us about this, by the way.
He grew up in Washington State, so he knows he used to be friends with like all those guys of Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. He knew the Alice in Chains. He knew all those guys. He used to hang in that whole like scene back in the 90s.
Yeah,
so
I still want to listen to that interview too. Like I kind of want to.
That stoner friend.
I think who was on The View, by the way? Wasn't somebody Pollyanna McIntosh was on The View?
Yes, I think she was. Yeah,
they're all doing like this kind of
a lot of promotion.
Yeah, and they should. They really need a re-injection.
Yeah, they do.
Of an audience. Like, oh, we're still here. Oh, and it's better than ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they gotta like hit the ground running and do that stuff, man.
And by the way, a lot of the guys on Fear started doing this, but they started going to these Latino shows, like the Latino talk shows.
Oh, really?
They all started doing that, and now like Pollyanna McIntosh is down there with Marco, the guy who plays Marco, Gustav Gomez.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's like the Spanish speaker, and and Pollyanna McIntosh is like, "See, no, I didn't see it, but like it was just." You can kind of tell there's one's very comfortable, the other one's like, I'm here and I'm happy, but I don't know what's going on.
That is so funny.
So I didn't know when that was a thing, though. Like, I didn't know that they would go down there.
This is news for me. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah, all the Fear characters went. Danai Garcia was down there. Who else was down there? One other Fear character, Fear actor went down there as well, and I can't remember who it. Oh, was it Kim Dickens? Maybe it was Kim Dickens. I don't know. Could have been Sebastian Sosi too, but I don't know. I know that it was a thing though. More than one person gone down there and like did like an interview, talk showy. It was like the dude with the clown hair and stuff. Here I am assuming that you might know. But you were telling me that like you would watch like those scary. Remember that family you told me about, the Hispanic family that was watching The Walking Dead and the reactions?
Oh yeah, the People's Couch.
Yeah, so I thought you might know what this talk show was. It's the guy that's dressed up in the clown makeup and stuff.
Oh no.
If you troll like Danai Garcia's feed, you'll see.
I did notice that. You're right. I'm not really familiar with it though. Like Latin television is.
It's getting a bump. It's been getting a bump for the last I want to say 5 years though. It's
hopefully
really
it's
improved in caliber.
Okay, yeah. Because when I was growing up, Latin television was shit. Like, I'm just gonna say it right now. Like, I mean,
telenovelas and all that stuff.
Oh god, the worst. It was when I was. But
now it's like really good. Apparently, all those they've injected it with steroids and stuff.
I mean, good, because like when I was growing up, and this is obviously the 80s and 90s, mostly, and I remember, my parents, especially because I am of Latin descent, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah, I know. My boss actually just like 2 weeks ago found out I was Dominican. She's like, "You're Dominican, really?" I'm like, "I've been here for 2 years," but anyway. I'm told.
Shocking.
I'm told all the time that I don't look or sound like a Dominican. so it's fine. Actually, side note, I went to Chicago for a day trip to meet with some contractors, and I think the gentleman was from somewhere in the Middle East. And
when you were meeting the contractor?
The one that was, and he was like all insistful in like, where was I from or whatever, and I was like, I was born and raised in New York, but my parents are Dominican, and now I'm in Miami, and he's like, oh no, like you look a lot like people in my area, like I grew up in Algeria and Morocco. I've gotten a lot of that.
I can see that. Morocco, because you have the curly hair.
Yes.
So and that's what they're known for. Moroccans, by the way, like
really?
like
they're known for curly hair.
The word for argan oil, the stuff that makes your hair really curly.
Yes.
That's from the Arabic word arganshi, which means curly. So arganshi. So yeah, there's a family. This is to show you how funny like Arab last names are, because like I just so everybody knows I'm a Syrian Jew, so like everybody getting last names weren't a thing. So in the Arab world, it's like you're son of this, so you're Osama bin Laden or something, right?
Okay.
Mohammed bin Ibrahim or something like so. But like when last names started getting introduced, and it's not really caught too much fire in the Arab world, but like in the Jewish world, like it makes sense. So what we would call our last names is like are either a characteristic or like a trade thing or what you're known for. And so there's this one girl in my class whose name was Jenny Arakanchi, and it's really from that word Jenny Arganshi or something like that. So and argan oil, and it's because her family has curly hair. That's why they're called Arkanshi. Oh my god! And there's so many funny last names. Like there's a guy who's named Shimricha, and that literally means if you make a little translation, it means man who smells things, or man who smells, or man who man who smells nice, or smell. It could be smell nice, but sometimes Arab language is a little bit practical, so it could be like, so when somebody says, "Oh, it smells funny," or like it kind of smells like shimriha, so it's like I smell something. Yeah. So the guy's like, so apparently his family's perfumery, like, but if it's translated wrong, it's the guy who smells. So just go figure. Yeah, but getting back to your thing is like, yeah, I could easily see that. I can if somebody's from that known world, they can easily confuse you for somebody who's Moroccan or Algerian for sure. You have darker complexion,
dark hair,
curly hair. Did you have curly hair?
No, I had it pulled back in a bun.
Ah, okay.
So I didn't even have a curly.
Not even at the ends at the pony or whatever.
No.
Oh wow.
No.
I could see that though. I could see that.
But yeah, so I don't even know how we got on that topic.
Latin television.
Yes. Latin
and where you're from and how that ties in, and shitty television growing up.
Okay. Thank you so much. So,
good.
Thank you for getting me right back on that track.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Yep.
Absolutely. I missed these tangents. You said you were going to go off tangent before, and you didn't so much, and now I'm in a good place now.
Yeah, I'm on that tangent. We'll see where it goes. No, Latin television growing up consisted of, like you said, telenovelas that were just
god awful,
the most absurd things in the world. I mean, just sort of like, I remember one that was oh god, it would make your head explode.
But you know what? But just taking what you know about that versus like American soaps, right?
No, it's completely different because American soaps go on forever,
and they take themselves really seriously. Whereas seriously. Do you think Latin,
I don't think they take it that seriously.
Exactly. But so what do you respect more, right?
I respect it more in the sense that I guess they're in on the joke.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. They basically kind of like go with the fact that like, look, come on. I mean, this is absurd. I mean, there's one that was like, I think there was one telenovela called India that was all like, very, yes, actually.
Was it really?
But, well, to me, because it was like Indian culture, but filmed in Brazil, but dubbed in Spanish. I was like, what the kind of mess is this? Like, it was just such a clusterfuck.
My mom watches something like that.
I mean, it's so absurd. And so, obviously, that's no longer on the air. But, I mean...
Obviously.
Because
it didn't have the market.
All telenovelas eventually end. But when I was growing up, it was a lot of telenovelas, and there was this one variety show, and it was like 5 hours, and it was horrible because, I was young, so I can't control the remote control, and I can't, control the TV. And like this show would literally be on Saturday night from 7 p.m. to like midnight or like 11:30. It was like the entire night was this awful variety show. It was just like Price is Right on steroids. Like,
Oh, I'd watch the shit out of that.
Like, I know people do. People would. Like, my dad's coworker would watch for the hot women, and but it was
so you mean like on hormones, I guess. So it's because it's kind of a broad spectrum here.
But it was like, they would have games, contests, interviews. Musician. I mean, it was like they just threw everything in there, just everything. And then it always ended with some sort of competition for a car. Like, and that's always how this crap ended. But it was so ridiculous and over the top, and it just never ended. It just kept going. And I just remember that as just being torturous to watch. So to this day, I'm just like, oh no, I can't. I was like, is that still on? Please tell me that's no longer on the air. And
especially considering the culture shift.
Another funny story about that. It's all marketing when it comes to things sometimes, like the guy who like hosted this show for like whatever 50 some odd years was this guy Don Francisco. No, seriously, I think it might have been
I think I know that dude. This is how ubiquitous it is.
He's super, like, he's like a major celebrity, and like I went to Chile for work one time, and he's practically everywhere, like framed photos of him. He's in Chile. And but the funny thing is, it's like he was always marketed as Don Francisco, whatever. That's not even his name. They market it that way to appeal to like Latin culture, because it's like, oh, okay, like everybody in Latin cultures, Don is like a sign of respect and and just sort of like camaraderie or whatever. And then Francisco, and maybe because his name might have been Francisco, but his real name is actually Mario Kretzenberger. But that doesn't work for Latin culture.
Hold up. Hold the phone.
But there's a lot of Chilean, German, and Jewish descent.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware of that.
Yeah,
like me.
But his there you go. But his real name is Mario Kretzenberger. But that doesn't work on Latin television.
Wow. I'm like, it's kind of like when you find out the dude from the Dos Equis commercials also a Jew. By the way,
sounds like the Adam Sandler's.
And not even like Hispanic, like at all. He's like an Ashkenazi Jew. It's really weird.
It's all marketing, man. But they have to appeal to the bigger their demographic of whatever it is that they're appealing towards. Wow. It's very interesting. Even like lately, I kind of noticed. And actually, I noticed it more after my friend pointed it out. One of my good girlfriends. She's Black, and she was saying how she pointed out how a lot more commercials now have interracial relationships depicted in terms of like when they show like a family, they'll show like, but the woman is always Black and the man is white, and not the other way. And I started noticing that. Like then when I started,
wasn't the Cheerios commercial the other way?
I don't know, but like lately, like when I've been watching it, it's definitely skewed more towards like the woman being Black and the man being white.
That's interesting. I mean, maybe that's why the Cheerios commercial had such a furore, because like people were, and those people, whatever, like, but that's all I have to say. That's the best reaction you can have without getting too deep.
I mean, exactly. I'm like,
maybe that's the reason. Yeah, it's like old stereotypes of like, trying to take your women and the thing at the Jello pudding pop. No.
No, let's not go to Bill Cosby.
Oh my God! But like, short anecdote about that. It's kind of like did Bill Cosby single-handedly roll back decades of like prejudice?
Oh God!
Single-handedly.
Well,
one hand had the pudding. Oh no!
In my mind, I kind of thought that maybe the whole celebrity thing, kind of influenced it, like Serena Williams and her relationship, and the Duchess of Sussex. And, in my mind, I was like, well, maybe that's why it's like kind of a trend. So maybe that's the reason why, they're just going with like what's in the public eye. So it's like, all right,
But do you think it means anything more, or it's just that's what people will gravitate towards? Oh,
I think they're just
this is more acceptable.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what goes into that sort of like marketing kind of thought process. And
the worst part about that is like half of most of my friends, most of my Black friends, they're married to white women, so it's kind of like it doesn't even at least match my reality, as acceptable or not acceptable, racial stereotypical.
I don't even think about it like that.
It just happens to be that it's the other way around for me. So
right, I don't even think about it like that in terms of.
I didn't even think about it until you brought it up. So.
No, like I don't like. That's the thing. It's like I don't notice those things, and I didn't really notice it until my friend brought it up. Because I didn't really. I don't know. And it might be just ignorance on my part, just sort of kind of being like, hey, everybody love each other, like I'm
It's you know what, that's kind of a good ignorance to kind of have sometimes, because it's good, because then you're coming from a place where you're like, oh, well, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this. It's like, well,
no, it just is what it is, you know.
And by the way, commercials have been doing that for years, though. Like, I'm not talking about like in the negative, but like I think commercials and have shaped popular culture, though. They've moved culture, because your kids are plopping around that on cartoon time, and you know, like ever since Star Trek, it's kind of like this stuff sells. Like moving into the future where we're all like a better society is kind of like, and it does kind of bring you back to The Walking Dead in a way, but like, you know, Star Trek, The Walking Dead, cooperation, where this doesn't even play a factor, where your character plays a factor, where your motivations play a character, you know, what you do determines, you know. I mean, could you imagine at any point, like, I don't think at any point did we see like somebody who's unsavory that was black on a show, well, at least on The Walking Dead. I'm trying to think, like, where there was, but like now, like, and Tanya Pinkins reveled in that role. She leaned in hard. So like that you can play that and it not be like a thing, and it be completely like, you know, but like some people would be like, oh, obviously the black woman is a villain or whatever. But like, no, that hasn't been the case on this show.
No. And I've always thought The Walking Dead's been very good about being, and my friend always...
Not tropey about that.
Yeah, my friend always joked, like, look, when the apocalypse happens and shit hits the fan, like, you know, what did she say? She had a specific saying. Oh, yeah, the apocalypse doesn't discriminate. Right. And it's true. Like, when that happens, it's not going to matter who's black, who's white, who's Asian, who's whatever, gay, lesbian, straight. It's not going to matter.
It's an equalizer, yeah.
It's an equalizer.
It's kill or be killed. It's, you know, don't trust anybody.
Right, and I think the show's been really good about kind of like showing that, you know.
It's an equal opportunity discriminator. Everybody's your enemy right now.
Everybody. It's like, look, this doesn't matter. We're all just human, and that makes us a target. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. So,
there you go.
I think that's a good note to leave off on, I suppose.
Yeah,
that was really good.
I think so.
And it brought us around.
Yeah. Go figure.
All from Latin television, and all from...
Look up Sabado Gigante one day.
Oh, God. Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. This thing's been on for like 50 years. Like,
I think that was my first...
God. I'm afraid what you're going to say.
Erection.
Oh, God.
I think that's when I came online.
And that's like your first like brush with Latin culture. If that's the case, that's horrible.
Well, I mean, thank you.
It's a horrible example. Horrible example. Oh, God.
Oh, wait, but then the host is Jewish. So it's just like caduceus. It's just eating itself.
Yeah. No, it's just, oh, God.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm so glad that show's no longer on the air.
But I'm so glad. It's just so funny that we brought this up.
It's funny, but it's just, I'm just so glad that show's no longer in existence.
Oh, yeah, is it not? I just don't even know. But yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
That's probably like the longest running show in television.
It could have been.
Maybe.
It very well could have been. I don't know, but it was on for a very long time.
Oh, is he even still alive? Don Francisco?
He is. He has to be, because if he died, it'd be all over Spanish television.
Oh yeah, it'd be like he's lying in wait at the Chilean.
Absolutely.
Or like
Absolutely.
they bury his body in Chile, and then they like what was his name? Tchaikovsky. I forget the artist. They buried his heart in Poland, but like they bury his heart in Mexico City, I guess, or something.
Really?
No, but yeah, Tchaikovsky. They buried him in. Was it France? And then they buried his heart in Poland or something like that. Something like that. I forget who it was. Mm-hmm. that would be apt for Don Francisco. Mm-hmm. But in a Jewish cemetery, obviously. The heart, I mean.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, there's another body part I could have said, but it's fine. I'm not going there.
Don't go there.
Because I don't know where that'd be buried. Oh, God.
He's such a slimy dude, too.
There's so many places I could have gone with that I won't. But I'm just leaving that out there.
So slimy. So slimy.
It moves culture.
He is. He is slimy.
Yeah, so I've heard. I've heard that show, man. Oh, man. And that I know about it.
Yeah, the fact that you know about it speaks volumes.
Yeah. Live long and prosper.
So gross.
Okay. All right, everybody. we're leaving you off with stars and happy faces and emojis of laughter.
Emojis of laughter.
And excitement over the next episode.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this next episode.
Same here. And I guess with that, everybody, we'll talk next week at this time and get excited for the next episode. Gigante.
Oh no. God, don't do that to me.
For the next episode, Gigante. Anyways.
No. God, no.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
I'm not going to bring it up.
Nope.
See you next time.
That was enough. Bye, guys.